Hey, everybody. Welcome. Glad that you are here with us tonight. We're going to have yet another great late night conversation, just like we always do. So, yeah, let's get it going. Should be good. Here we go.
Spoken of the American century. I say that the century on which we are entering can be and must be the century of the common man.
A radical redistribution of economic power.
I mean, we know that racism is just a byproduct of capitalism. Everything would be all right if everything was put back in the hands of the people.
We need a government that will make sure Americans are taken care of and organize the economy to serve the people, not the profits of a wealthy few.
We now have the techniques and the resources to get rid of poverty.
We got to start getting out there with the people.
Get out of the movement and get to the masses.
We need a government of action.
All right, everybody. Welcome. So glad that you all are here with us tonight. Hold on. So yeah, we're gonna have yet another late night conversation, just like we always do. Same format: opening remarks, roll call, and then I answer questions in the second half of the show. Now, YouTube has hit us with some unfair, illegitimate censorship, which we are pushing back against as much as we possibly can. So we can't get super chats on YouTube. We can still get Rumble rants for questions if you're on Rumble. And if you have, if you'd like to just send me questions yourself, you can send me Cash App, Caleb Maupin 22, and you can send me your question on Cash App, and that's a great way to do it. So, you can Cash App me questions at Caleb Maupin 22, or you can send me a Rumble rant. Unfortunately, we can't do super chats because we have been unfairly demonetized, which we will push back against. Absolutely. So, looking forward to the second half of the show when we answer people's questions. Always a pleasure. And glad you're here with us on Saturday evening. Now, coming up in July is our national convention as the Center for Political Innovation. This will be the biggest event that we have ever done by far. And we just had a meeting this afternoon, our general membership meeting, and we discussed different ideas for building the event. Very, very exciting. I am headed to Chicago soon to get the ball rolling on outreach. And I got to tell you, I'm very, very, very excited for the convention. I will say more about that later. But yeah, you can register. Information is in the description. And I'm headed to California, April 19th. We're going to have a small get together, just kind of like we did in Minneapolis. This time it'll be in Los Angeles. So, if you are going to be in the Los Angeles area, if you're in California, if you're in Arizona or New Mexico or wherever, come and join us. Spend the day, get to meet Dan Niswander, get to meet myself, hear some good music, good speeches, that kind of thing, good presentations. It'll be just kind of a social get together. It's going to be a lot of fun. So yeah, the way we do things here, same format as always. It's the same format as always, which is that I give my opening remarks about whatever it is that I want to talk about. Then from there, I answer your questions for the remainder of the show. We do a roll call before that just to see who's there. It's starting to be springtime here in New York City, but it's warm weather out, but the wind is blowing like crazy. I sat on a park bench and read a book, and I could barely hold on to my book pages. And I mean, it was wild. It was wild, but I'm glad that it's bright outside. I'm also glad that it's starting to be warm weather. Glad I was able to hit the gym and exercise a little bit today. And I'm glad to be here with all of you. I always feel energized when I speak to all of you, and I really do mean that. Being here is very, very rewarding for me. I'm actually working on another book, as always. I've been doing some different research, etc. But I'm here with all of you. heads up, I am going to go and appear on Do Dissidents podcast tomorrow night around 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'm very excited. I've been with Do Dissidents before with Russell and the other hosts at Do Dissidents. I'm really looking forward to that. And we're going to be discussing Yemen. And it'll be on Rumble only because they obviously don't want to suffer the same kind of bullshit censorship that we have dealt with here. But I will be on Rumble with Do Dissidents. So that's going to be very exciting. And I hope that you will tune in for that. I love the folks at Do Dissidents. They do great work. And so that's going to be good. So tune in on Do Dissidents podcast. That's going to be awesome tomorrow night. And I will say a certain book, a lot of people are reading it. Can't talk much about the content, but a lot of people are reading it. Just got to say. So, it's there. It exists, right? Not saying anything about it. Don't want to get censored again, but it exists. But tonight, I've got a couple things I wanted to talk to you all about. First thing that I wanted to talk to you all about, and I think this is very, very relevant. This is very, very important in understanding why this YouTube channel is important. Look, weird things are happening in the YouTube algorithms, all right? Stuff is happening. First of all, social media is being flooded with a number of AI-created videos, and that is confusing the algorithm. YouTube is changing the algorithm. A lot of people are complaining about how much YouTube has changed and all of that, and, it's just a reality that we have to deal with. I never meant for this channel to be an end unto itself. Let me repeat that. I have never meant for this channel to be an end unto itself. Never. I have always intended for this channel to be a vehicle for education and for building an organization. That has always been the purpose of this channel. And it was interesting because at one point a couple of years ago, somebody who's quite prominent, mind you, said to me, I'm not even going to say who it is because I don't want to harbor a grudge against this person, but he said to me, you should stop organizing, Caleb. You should stop organizing. You can make a YouTube video essay every so often. Just stop organizing. And I heard that, and that was just like, no comprendo. Why would I be on here talking politics if I wasn't trying to change the world, if I wasn't trying to build an organization, if I wasn't trying to inspire people to get politically active? This YouTube channel was never simply an end unto itself. This YouTube channel has always served the purpose of teaching people and inspiring people to get active in the global struggle against imperialism. And the Center for Political Innovation has evolved and changed over the years, and we've had many great victories, and we are becoming more and more potent every time. And I mean that. It's interesting. There's a lot that is written. I think Lenin said that the party, we're not a party, but the party becomes more effective by purging itself. And in a way, you could say a similar thing about us, because each time we clarify what we're about, each time we carry out successful operations, each time we understand why we exist a little bit better, we lose people, but then the people that we have are much more effective. And it's very interesting. CPI at this point is doing far more and has done far more than ever before. And if you look at what we accomplished last year, all the things that we did last year, I mean, in terms of international events, in terms of domestic activism, the Peace MAGA operation, solidarity with the Uhuru defendants, we did so much last year. And we're already off to a huge start to do even more this year. We are very, very much a dedicated and moving organization. And the reason that we exist is we want to inspire people to think, because this system very much does not want people to think. I have used the phrase before, and I will use it again. I have said that most of humanity is living biologically, meaning they are only alive in the biological sense. A plant is alive, a tree is alive, an ant is alive, a gopher is alive, your dog or your cat is alive, but they do not have agency. They respond to stimulus. They avoid pain. They seek pleasure. And they go through life living in a way that they really have no control over. Whereas human beings, to be human, is to take responsibility and make dramatic choices and wrangle with big questions. And that is what it means to be human, because human beings are the only species that forces the environment to serve us. And we don't merely interact with our environment. We innovate. We reinvent nature. We reinvent our nature, our interaction with nature. We expand our life expectancy. We expand our population. Human beings have this innovative power, but in order to do that, you have to awaken. And my job is to awaken you, to get you to think, to stimulate you to wake up. And what I have noticed is that social media, not just social media, but lots of politics, is infected by demagogy. Now, what is demagogy? Because there's a lot of people who say, well, demagogy is if you have a lot of emotion in your remarks. That is not what demagogy is. Demagogy is if you speak with passion. No, demagogy is if you give a very, very good and well-articulated speech to make your case. No, that is not what demagogy is. Demagogy is a big problem. And what demagogy is when you're not being taught. Is when someone appeals to you on a political level without teaching you anything. They don't give you any new facts. They don't help you to understand any new concepts or anything around you. They just appeal to feelings that you already have. That's what demagogy is. And demagogy is a problem because we don't get better as a result of demagogy. All right? If I were to give you $100, you would gain $100. If I was to give you a new piece of furniture, you would gain a new piece of furniture. If I gave you a couch and brought it into your house, you would have a new couch and you would have gained a new couch. However, if I went to your house and I just rearranged your furniture, what have you gained? If anything, I've inconvenienced you because you have to move it back or you don't know where things are. And that's what demagogy is. You take feelings and emotions that people already have and you stimulate them, you rearrange them, but you don't teach them anything. And when I see demagogy, it pisses me off. It pisses me off when I see demagogy because the job of people that want to change the world is to teach people and to get them to think, to get them to think. And demagogy is about not getting people to think. I saw this video. This video is floating around social media. And I mean, this video, it's annoying. It's certainly annoying. But what bothers me about this video is that this is a very heated argument that happened on a New York City subway, in which one person who was a supporter of Donald Trump and one person who was opposed to Donald Trump argued with each other. But what bothers me is that nobody, I mean, there's a whole subway car full of people observing, listening. None of them learned a damn thing. None of them learned anything from this argument. I'll show it right here. This is a video I saw. This is an example of politics that has no hope to it.
That's why he won. Because people like you. That's why he won. That is why he won, because of people like you who need to stop it. Let him live.
Bro, just like, bro, chill, bro.
You're okay with that? He's a racist.
I'm so okay.
How can I be racist?
He's a racist.
Okay with it.
If you
I'm
fucking
so
voted
okay
for
with
Trump,
it.
you're a racist.
He's so wrong.
He's a racist.
How can I be racist?
No, he's not. Leave him alone.
Doesn't watch the news.
You realize
He wants to be
Democrats.
highly educated.
Oh, are you? Then why are you wearing that hat?
Everything's going up for I don't know how long. The Democrats been running New York since who knows how long. But then Trump comes in and just takes over.
Alright, well, this is my stop. I hope you enjoy the hat.
Oh, she tried to attack her.
Did anyone get more intelligent as a result of that argument? Now, you know, if you're a Trump supporter, you hate the woman. If you're a anti-Trump person. You hate the guy in the MAGA hat. But there was a whole audience there, a captive audience there in the subway. And if that woman really opposed Donald Trump, she could have presented facts about why she disagrees with Donald Trump. And she could have made a persuasive argument. But she didn't. And that guy who supported Trump, right, he could have come back at her with facts about why Donald Trump was good in his opinion. He didn't do that. She called him racist. He said, "How can I be racist?" I would say the smartest guy in the room was the man who you couldn't see, who said, "That's why he won, because of people like you." That's the smartest thing I heard in that entire argument. That guy was not a Trump supporter, but he was saying that her over-the-top Trump derangement syndrome reaction probably causes people to sympathize with Trump. That's like the only intelligent thing that was said in that entire goddamn video. There was one guy observing that the over-the-top shrill reaction to Donald Trump in some cases helps Trump. That was somewhat intelligent. So that's probably the only intelligent thing, the only educational thing, the only thing that made people think in the entire video. And what a tragedy that is, because there's a whole subway car of people there. Maybe a lot of them had their headphones on or whatever, but I'm not opposed to arguing with people about politics in public spaces. I'm not opposed to that. I'm certainly opposed to violence. She shouldn't have attacked him the way she did, but I'm not against having an argument. Having an argument, fine, but teach people something. Red team versus blue team is not a productive argument. Let me emphasize this once again. Red team versus blue team is not a productive argument. It's not. Nobody learns anything. And that we very much have a culture. This is the whole thing that Peter Coffin has written about fandom and the problem with fandom. Fandom, it's so interesting. So what are we always taught is so great about America is that here in America, what do? We think for ourselves, right? People in these other countries are brainwashed, but we think for ourselves. And it's a tragic thing that we've gotten into, because in America, we're all challenged to find ourselves. How can we be ourselves? How can we be ourselves? How can we prove who we are? How can we identify? And largely that leads to consumerism. First of all, you got to get a social media account. You got to get a Facebook to set up, to show the world who you are. And then you've got to choose an identity. And, am I a punk rock fan? Am I a country music fan? Am I a Trump supporter? Am I a conservative? Am I a liberal? What am I? Right? And so we get into consumption to prove who we are, to prove how our unique way. And it becomes very, very niche, right? That's a word that people are talking about nowadays. Niche, right? No one's a car fan. Everyone's a Japanese car fan, or a European car fan, or a blue car. And everyone has to develop this really, 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 really specific niche to prove who they are individually, to prove that they think for themselves, to prove that nobody can define who they are. They think for themselves, and they gotta just show that they're smart, that they're individual. And so you got to get more and more niche to prove how individual, to prove that you think for yourself. And so you've got to figure out what team you're on, and which part of the team you're on, and which part of the team you're on, and which part of the team you're on. In fact, and you get into the mindset, you can only speak to people that are in your specific part of the team, and your specific part of the team, and your specific part of the team. And that, you spend this whole time trying to prove that you think for yourself. No one can tell you what to think. And you are red team, section B, part A, and there's this endless search for my unique special identity, my niche, my particular way, and it's all about what money you spend and who you consume from, who you watch on social media, what kind of shirt you wear, what kind of pants you buy. And it's all very consumptive, and there's a lot of spending money that goes in on it. But you're just desperately trying to prove how individual you are, and nobody learns anything. Because if you learn something, you'll be acknowledging that somebody else taught you something. You can't do that, right? You can't do that because then you're not special. If you learn something from somebody else, then that might mean that you didn't know it all to begin with, which nobody does. And so we're all in this desperate effort, to define our individuality by checking off boxes, to not learn from anybody else, to consume, to figure out exactly how we can consume to prove that we are free-thinking individuals. And we're all goddamn lonely. Let's just be honest with it. We're all lonely as a result. Because we've been sold a bill of goods that says I can only speak to somebody who's in my little niche. And I can't learn from anybody, especially if somebody is not in my niche. I can't learn from them because then I'm not being loyal to my niche. And I'm not showing everyone that I think for myself. In order to show everyone I think for myself, I can't learn or listen to anybody else. And number two, I can only associate with people in my little bubble that just keeps getting narrower and narrower and narrower. This is a trap. It's a trap that is leaving lots and lots of people miserable. That's what it's doing. I mean, a lot of people are ending up completely miserable because of this think for yourself trap. You're not really thinking for yourself. You're just digging yourself a deeper and deeper hole. Imagine that you're like a prison laborer, right? And your job is to dig a hole. You ever read the book Holes by Louis Sacker? This is a children's book, Holes. It's about a prison, a juvenile prison in Texas, where the kids, their daily task is they have to dig a hole. All right. And that's basically what we're all in. We're all in a prison digging ourselves a deeper and deeper hole. And that's what we're doing. And we all think we're free while we're digging the hole. I'm going to show at the bottom of the hole is self-actualization. At the bottom of the hole is being a free, independent thinking person. And that's at the bottom of the hole. Is showing everyone that you know everything and you're great and independent and you're brilliant and you're a great individual that no one can teach anything to you. That's what's at the bottom of the hole. But I'm going to tell you, the hole just keeps getting deeper. And the more you get into this trap, you keep digging and you keep digging and you keep digging and you keep digging, and it's just more and more dirt. There's just more and more dirt. It's a bottomless pit, and it just keeps going down, and you just keep getting lower. You just keep getting lower. And it's a trap. And so many people are stuck in this trap. This trap of trying to show everyone their individuality and trying to show everyone that they think for themselves. And the reason that our organization, the Center for Political Innovation, exists, the reason that I have this YouTube channel, is to try and get you out of digging the hole. That's what I'm trying to do. Take it or leave it. Take it or leave it. You can keep digging the hole if you want, and you can do whatever you want. You don't have to keep digging the hole. You can go do something else. You can go learn yoga. You can go, learn the art of sharpshooting and take up riflemanship. You can do whatever you want. But I'm telling you that so many people are stuck in the hole. And that the bulk of the content that I see on social media is just digging the hole. Just digging the hole. And that if I wanted to be social media famous, if I wanted to be internet famous, I would help you dig the hole. I would get on here and I would say things that you already believe, and I would say them in crazy ways. And you would share me and go, that's right, that thing that I'm mad about, Caleb's mad about it too, and just is even more mad about it than I am. And I wouldn't teach you anything, and I wouldn't challenge you in any way, and I wouldn't give you any information you didn't have. I would just get on here and give you a bunch of explosive emotions about things that you already feel. If you're a Trump hater, I would hate Trump. If you're a Trump supporter, I would hate Democrats, and I would do it in outrageous, performative ways, and I wouldn't teach you anything, and I would help you feel validated, and you could share me as part of your niche, and then I'd get into a fight with somebody else who's slightly different than me, and we would throw mud at each other and not teach each other anything. Do y'all remember a few years ago I had a debate with Jason Unruhe, and the debate started, and I started the debate by reading a document from the Chinese Communist Party and saying, let's talk about this. And he's like, I don't want to talk about this. I just want to talk about why you're bad. And it's like, what good does the audience gain? But that's the game. And I'm not playing the game. I have always refused to play the game. I have always refused to play that game. And I've always come on here and tried to educate you. I have always come on here and tried to teach you stuff. I am not a demagogue. And if I was a demagogue, this channel would be bigger. I'd be making a lot more money. I'd be way more famous. A lot less people would hate me. But unfortunately, my conscience doesn't allow me to be a demagogue. I just don't have it in me. If I tried to force myself to be a demagogue, and I've tried gimmicks here and there over the years, I'm not a demagogue. I'm a teacher. I am not trying to keep you asleep and reinforce the hypnotic spell of fandom that you're already under. I am trying to awaken you. That's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to teach you things. And we go into great detail about history. We go into great detail about philosophy. We go into great detail about economics. Say that word again. 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 Economics. We talk a lot about economics on here. When people hear the word economics, their mind shuts off. They go, oh, that's something I don't know anything about it. Yeah, you do. Yeah, you do. You ever been to the store? You ever been to the grocery store? You pay your bill when you go up to the checkout line. You know about economics. Do you get paid at your job? Do you have wages? Have you ever gotten a raise? Have you ever gotten laid off from your job? You know about economics. Economics is the most important thing. And the other issues that we have, wars, are rooted in economics. Divisions and the fights in our political establishment, Trump versus anti-Trump, January 6th, all this stuff, Elon Musk, government, Department of Government Efficiency, all of this is economics. And they've done everything in the world to keep you from thinking about economics. Economics, we are told, is something that we just can't understand. Well, I am here to teach you about primarily economics. That's what I'm here to teach you about, because we are dominated by two schools of economic thought, both of which are wrong. Both of which are wrong. And there's a new economy rising in the world today, in Russia, in China, in many African countries, in Latin America, in the Middle East, that is free from the stupidities of Western economics. And that's why people are rising up out of poverty while our countries are coming apart politically. There is an economic question at the heart of the world today. And my job is to teach you about it. And I don't expect you to already know that. And if you knew that already, we would be in a much better situation. But we don't know about it. And no, I'm not going to pander really hard to the left. I am vehemently critical. In fact, I think that left economics in its current incarnation is probably the primary threat. But I'm also very critical of conservative and economics. Both schools are wrong. Both schools are wrong. And we need to change how we think about economics. And I'm not interested. I'm really not interested in your pet issue. I mean, look, somebody reached out to me and they said, Caleb, can a trans person or an LGBT person join CPI? And I said, absolutely. We don't care about your sexuality. Your sex life is your business. People have made fake memes. They've circulated around the internet saying other things, but I have pointed out, no, there are people in CPI that are LGBT, and there are people in CPI who are religious and object to LGBT, or feminists and object to some of the trans stuff and the way trans stuff interjects. We don't care about that. And the person responded, they said, yeah, but Caleb, what if somebody calls somebody the wrong gender? And I said, we've never had such an issue. It's never come up. If somebody is going out of their way to be an asshole to somebody for any reason, because of their gender, because of their religion, because of their race, because of their height, because of anything, that's a problem. But I got to break it to you all. In real life, not on X, not on Twitter, but in real life, people are generally not assholes to other people, believe it or not. In real life, we tend to be nice to the people that we're around. Now, obviously, that subway video is a bit of an exception to that, but in most of the time, especially if you're coming all the way to an event for an organization whose causes you believe in, you generally try to be nice. The problems, the rudeness, the anger, the division comes when we're all isolated and atomized on the internets. And that's where we get our problems. But generally, people are nice to each other in person. It's kind of uncomfortable. If you go into a room with a bunch of people and you act like a dick, you generally want to get out of that room as fast as you can because everyone in the room thinks you're a dick. That's generally how these things work. And, I'm somebody who, in my political life, we learned the art of disruption. We would go to events that we politically disagreed with, and in the middle of the event, we would stand up and start shouting. And do you know how hard it is to do that? It's not easy to do. You have to really psych yourself out to do it. You have to practice doing it. It takes courage. It's a really uncomfortable thing to do. Why? Because human beings don't want to act that way. If you're in a room full of people, you want to be nice. And you might say, I disagree about that. But people generally don't want to be assholes to other people in real life. On the internet, when you can be anonymous, where you don't see facial reactions, you're not getting nonverbal cues. Yes, it's very easy to be a complete asshole on the internet. That's why I don't want to exist purely on the internet. That's why I'm building an in real life organization. And look, we are up against a lot, but I am confident. I am confident in what we are going to achieve. And I really absolutely love the people in our community, the Center for Political Innovation, the meetings that we have, and even getting on here and being able to talk to you all on this channel is very, very refreshing for me and very, very reassuring for me. It gives me a real boost to come on here and talk with all of you. So I'm going to continue as we always do. There's something that I used to do on this channel a really long time ago, like years ago, when this channel was first starting. I had a subscription to The Economist. And in The Economist magazine, in the first page, they have a roundup of this week. It's called This Week, The World This Week Politics. It's on page 5 of The Economist. And I used to just go through it and react to what was there. And I figured, it's been a long time since I've done that, but I do have a subscription to The Economist once again. And so I'll sure do that thing. I'm gonna react to the world this week politics from The Economist. So this is from the March 22nd issue of The Economist. Just got it in the mail today. Here we go. Donald Trump held a 2-hour telephone conversation with Vladimir Putin to discuss the war in Ukraine. Mr. Putin rejected Trump's call for a ceasefire, but said he would refrain from attacking Ukrainian energy infrastructure for 30 days. Now, listen to how they phrased that. Right there, that shows you bias. Rejected Trump's call for a ceasefire. No, they agreed to an energy infrastructure ceasefire. That's the way it's been put. They didn't agree to a total ceasefire yet. But they did not reject Trump's calls for a ceasefire. See how they're framing it. This is, The Economist is the voice of the British Empire. The Economist has been around for a long time. It is the voice of the City of London and the London Stock Exchange. Look how they worded it. Rejected his call for a ceasefire. No, he didn't. He just said, right now we're agreeing to an energy infrastructure ceasefire. But they're negotiating the terms of not just a ceasefire, but an end to the war. So just right there, notice how the City of London is framing things. Regardless, that's the first item. Then from there it says, Mr. Trump called for the impeachment of a judge who had ordered the suspension of a program for deporting alleged Venezuelan gang members. The White House was accused of flouting the order by going ahead with deporting Venezuelans to El Salvador. Well, here's the most important thing about that story. This gang in Venezuela, right? Tren de Iguala, or how do you say it? Somebody in the chat probably knows the correct pronunciation. This is an anti-Maduro gang. This is an anti-Venezuelan government gang. This is an anti-socialist, anti-communist, pro-imperialist drug gang. It's a prison gang that was formed in the prisons, and it is an anti-Maduro gang, and that never gets brought up. They continue, and why do you think they all got visas to the United States? Is that what the U.S. government does? It generally just says, hey, you're from some country. You're from some country we don't like. You can send super chats to Caleb Moppin 22 on Cash App. We're demonetized. But is that what the U.S. government does? It just lets people in? Of course not. This is an anti-Venezuelan gang. This is a gang that has been trying to overthrow the Venezuelan government. And nobody ever brings that up. It's just conveniently left out. This is a group of people the U.S. government has been supporting and arming to try and overthrow Maduro because we don't like Maduro, because we don't like the socialist government of Venezuela. It was Hugo Chavez first, and then it was Maduro. And this ugly, awful, nasty group of bad motherfuckers that torture people, that cut people's heads off and do all kinds of evil things. Everything Trump says about them is true, by the way. He hasn't lied about them as far as I can tell. They're nasty, nasty pieces of shit. And they take over apartment buildings, and they're some bad, bad, bad folks. But the U.S. government has been working with them to overthrow the Venezuelan government. That never gets brought up anytime. And that's something that, is worth raising. That this is, and it's not the first time. Where do you think crack cocaine came from? How do you think crack came to the United States? Well, we now know that it came from Nicaragua. In Nicaragua, they had a socialist government, the Sandinistas. And in response to the Sandinistas, the U.S. government started funding the Contras, the counter-revolutionary terrorists. And they're the ones that brought crack to the United States. And actually, Tom Cruise made a movie about it. You can go watch. It's called American Made, and it's all about how Bill Clinton was the governor of Arkansas, and the CIA arranged for crack to be brought into the United States and flooded the streets with crack in arrangement with the Contras of Nicaragua, the anti-communists, the anti-socialists, the Contras that were fighting the Sandinistas of Nicaragua. That's a fact. And just like the U.S. government worked with the Contras, the U.S. government has worked with paramilitaries in Colombia that worked against the communist groups in Colombia. And the U.S. government is now working with and has been working with Tren de Aguila in Venezuela. Now, that's the story there. The story is not Donald Trump is a big fat racist. These are good. No, these are not good people, right? Now, some people have said that there's people who have been, thrown to El Salvador unjustly just because they had a tattoo or something like that. That's different. But Trump is not being a big fat racist by saying that this gang that's terrorized Venezuela for decades is bad. And Trump is telling the truth. What Trump is leaving out is that these people are the foot soldiers of U.S. regime change against Venezuela. That's the story there. But let's continue. Let's continue. Daniel Noboa, the president of Ecuador, said Mr. Trump should designate Ecuadorian criminal gangs as terrorists, similar to the designations Trump gave to gangs from Mexico and Venezuela. Mr. Noboa also invited America, Brazil, and Europe to send soldiers to join his crackdown on the world's cocaine that passes through Ecuador. The American Senate voted for a Republican spending measure that averted a government shutdown. Very, very good. Colombia's finance minister quit after just 3 months on the job amid a quarrel with the country's first left-wing president, Petro, over budget cuts. Israel launched a series of airstrikes on Gaza, breaking the ceasefire it had just signed with Hamas in January. Israel said it was targeting Hamas's surviving commanders, but over 400 people, including many civilians, were killed. Israel began a new ground offensive and sent troops back. Benjamin Netanyahu, Israel's prime minister, said this is just the beginning. He vowed that all future ceasefire negotiations would be conducted only under fire. Mr. Netanyahu tried to sack Ronan Bar, the head of Israel's domestic security service. And then from there, you got to love this, American warplanes targeted the Houthis, a rebel group in Yemen that attacked Israeli ships in the Red Sea. Now, notice that they don't mention why the Houthis are blocking ships in the Red Sea. They stopped their attacks on ships in the Red Sea. They stopped blocking ships in the Red Sea when Israel stopped bombing Gaza during the ceasefire. And then Israel broke the ceasefire and killed 400 people. So those forces continued their attack. Now, that's a kind of relevant fact, right? They mentioned, oh yeah, the ceasefire was broken. Oh, and then this group that cannot be named, right? We don't want to get in trouble, any more trouble for mentioning them, even though somebody wrote a book about them or something, right? There's a book that I randomly found somewhere about them, but we won't mention that, right? We hope YouTube doesn't hear about that. But YouTube doesn't like it when you write books about things and you're smart. But it doesn't mention that these ships that were attacked in the Red Sea were attacked in response to a ceasefire being broken. It makes it sound like it was random. So no, it wasn't random. There was a picket line in the Red Sea, and there continues to be a picket line in the Red Sea, and picket lines are illegal. Let me just get this out. Let's just be honest where that H group that YouTube doesn't like, is what they are doing in the Red Sea illegal? Yes, it is absolutely illegal. And you know what? When labor unions are on strike, they will frequently engage in what is called a picket line, where a business that they don't like, that is not recognizing the union or mistreating its workers or whatever, they will stand in front of that business and they will block people from going in. That is illegal. It is illegal to block people from entering a business. But labor unions do it. They enforce a boycott in order to get what they want. That's what some group that's mentioned in a book is doing. They are engaging in a picket line. It is a picket line in the Red Sea. They want to stop what is being done to the Palestinians, and so they have erected a picket line. And that is illegal. You betcha. It is absolutely illegal. And I have never contended that it was not illegal. I've never said it wasn't illegal. It's definitely illegal. You cannot do that. And Russia opposes it, right? Because, Russia has to oppose it. Because if they don't oppose it, then the USA starts blocking their ships, right? It's clearly not allowed under international law, but they're doing it. And they're doing it for a reason. And if you read a book that somebody wrote about it, you'll learn what that reason is, and you'll learn why they ain't going to stop. They are not going to stop, and that the best hope we have is to talk to them and try to negotiate and try to get Israel to stop doing what it's doing, which is also definitely illegal, which has been ruled illegal by many international bodies. And if Israel will stop their illegal activities, I'm sure certain Yemenis will stop their illegal activities. And they did stop it. When Israel stopped, they stopped. And then Israel started, and they started. And that's an important aspect of this that is being left out, right? If the Yemenis were just pirates, if they were just terrorist pirates or whatever, they wouldn't have stopped for 30 days. They did stop for 30 days. All right, continuing. Nigeria's president, Bola Tinubu, declared a state of emergency in Rivers, an oil-rich state in the Niger Delta. He also suspended the state's governor and all lawmakers, claiming the governor, who belongs to an opposition party, had not adequately responded to a pipeline explosion. Let me just say this, okay? And this is an important aspect of this. Nigeria is, at this point, the top oil-producing country on the African continent. It used to be Libya until the USA destabilized and overthrew the government of Muammar Gaddafi and Libya. But that said, Nigeria is now the top oil-producing country on the African continent. And that Niger Delta region, so you have the Niger River, right? And the Niger Delta is the area, the delta is like the area around the river that has particularly rich soil because it's near a river, right? You have the delta is the area that gets flooded, the area where the soil is rich from the river. And that area, the Niger Delta region, is very, very, very wealthy in terms of oil. And the people there live in extreme poverty. If you want to see extreme poverty, go to the richest part of the African continent, the part that has the most of the world's most valuable commodity, oil, and you will see some of the poorest people. And that right there tells you something. But also that region has been highly contested. There was the Biafra War that was fought. And because there's so much natural wealth in that area, there has been a huge amount of fighting. So this latest incident with a pipeline explosion and then the government of that region being removed and all of that, oil makes the world go round. And we live in an oil-based global economy. And so that's why this is very, very important. Again, economics. There's somebody who wants you to look at this and say, it's those Africans. They have too many kids and they're just poor. No, this is about economics, right? And the Niger Delta region is very, very important. Nigeria produces more of the world's most valuable commodity than any other part of Africa right now. And the people there are very poor. And the life expectancy is very low. And the rate of literacy is very low. And that goes to show you, and there's a reason for that. And that's because the oil of the Niger Delta region, the oil of Nigeria, is in the hands of BP, Shell, Chevron, and ExxonMobil. And even though they produce so much wealth, that wealth goes into the pocket of Wall Street bankers and London bankers. It's in the pocket of globalism, right? And do not think for a minute that globalism, imperialism, the economic system we live under, is about development. It's in raising people up. It is not. Imperialism is about keeping countries from developing. It is about keeping people in poverty. It is about keeping countries impoverished. And what countries that break out of globalism, imperialism do is they build, right? Soviet Union, they broke out of Western capitalism, and Stalin launched 5-year plans, and he built huge power plants, and he built an oil industry, and he hired the Koch brothers' dad, Fred Koch, to organize his oil industry, and he hired General Electric to come build power plants. And in the 1930s, the Soviet Union was a powerhouse of industry. The rest of the world was having a Great Depression, but the Soviet Union was rapidly industrializing, building the world's largest steel industry. They had the world's largest power plant, the Dnieper Dam in Ukraine, and they lifted people up. And China is another great example. They broke out of imperialism and they started building themselves up. And now they're the second largest economy in the world. Libya broke out of imperialism, and Gaddafi wiped out illiteracy. He created the world's largest irrigation system, the Great Man-Made River, highest life expectancy on the African continent. There's many, many examples. When countries break out of imperialism, it's because they want to build. And what imperialism does to countries is it keeps them impoverished. It keeps them impoverished. And this is an important aspect of understanding globalism, imperialism. Imperialism is not about bringing development. It's the opposite. It's about holding back development. And that's an important point. Let's continue. Germany's Bundestag voted to exempt most defense spending from legal restrictions on government debt to create a $500 billion infrastructure fund. The vote marks a big shift away from constraints on government spending under the Constitution, European security policy. Yeah, so everybody knows that beneath the surface in Germany, the German folks are not happy. And they're not happy because their economy is getting worse. And their economy is getting worse because they are part of the Western economy, the Western club that is going all in against Russia. And they used to have a pipeline with Russian gas coming into Germany. And Joe Biden blew it up. It was called the Nord Stream pipeline. And Joe Biden blew it up. And now they buy their natural gas from the United States. And it costs way, way more because you have to bring it all the way from here rather than just right next to them in Russia. And the Germans, let me just say this. Germany is an imperialist country. It's a colonizer, right? It exploited and colonized different parts of the world. It was never really part of the club. And World War I and World War II were basically Germany trying to assert itself as part of the Western colonialism, imperialism club. And, you know, World War I, the Germans, the Austrians, and the Turks teamed up, and they fought against the French and the British and the Americans. And they tried to seize chunks of the colonized world for themselves, and 20 million people died. And after that, Germany was stripped of all its colonies, stripped of its right to have a military, etc. Then World War II happened. And World War II was this guy named Hitler seized control of Germany and tried to reassert German imperialism. And he built an authoritarian fascist state. And, you know, they tried to re-seize their colonies and, you know, seize big chunks of Europe. And that was World War II. And they did, you know, horrendous crimes against humanity, the Holocaust, etc., killed 27 million people in the Soviet Union. And after that, Germany was again stripped of its colonies. And Germany, since then, has not really, I mean, they have U.S. NATO troops on their soil, and Germany has always basically been kicked around, and Germany is not allowed to assert its own economic interest. Now, it is an imperialist country, and we don't want Germany to go re-seize parts of Africa that it once had. We don't support German imperialism. But that said, there are a lot of people in Germany who are not communists, not even really anti-imperialists, who are like, we're getting screwed. And that is what the rise of the AfD party in Germany is really about. They're not Nazis. They are not Nazis. Anyone who tells you they're Nazis, they're German Trumpers, right? You know, Trump says America first. They say Germany first. And they realize that fighting with Russia is not in their economic interest. It doesn't benefit them. And they would like German capitalists to make more money, and they're not pro-European Union, they're not pro-NATO, and they're just saying, look, we Germans would like better for Germany, and we're being screwed by being part of the imperialist club. That's what the AfD is. And Germany right now has been kind of had its arm twisted to become an essential part of the anti-Russia hysteria. That really doesn't benefit them because Russia is right on their border. Russia's right near them. They don't actually border, but it's very close to them. They've lost a lot of trade. Their ports, they don't have Russian products coming into German ports anymore. And, the Germans have really gotten screwed. However, I've noticed that, electrical outlets, right? In the United States, we have the two prongs, right? Right. In the United States, our plugs are like this, right? It's two prongs, right? And then there's different electrical outlet types. If you go to any anti-imperialist country, if you go to Iran, if you go to Russia, if you go to Venezuela, what kind of outlets do they have? German outlets. And I'm telling you, beneath the surface, there are a lot of Germans who recognize that the fate of Germany, economically speaking, is not under the thumb of Britain and America. And that the Germans and the Russians teaming up has always been the greatest fear of the British. Because if the Germans and the Russians team up, the British lose control of the European mainland. That has always been the greatest fear of the British. Is a German-Russian alliance, and that's what AfD stands for. That's why Hitler was brought into power to begin with. In Germany in the 1930s, after they'd been stripped of all their colonies, etc., there was a big communist party in Germany. And if the German communists had come to power, Germany would have become an ally of the Soviet Union and Russia. Germany had the largest communist party in the world outside of the Soviet Union at the time. They had millions of people that were their members. They controlled certain neighborhoods. And so the British funded Hitler and brought Hitler to power to prevent Germany and Russia from becoming allies. That has always been the greatest fear of the British, is German-Russian alliance. And right up to today, that's why they blew up the Nord Stream pipeline. That's why we have a situation where in Germany, they are increasingly, working against their economic interest. And Germany is a wild card. They are absolutely a wild card in the global economy. Is there anything else I want to mention here? Not particularly. But, that's a thing I used to do on here, is I would used to go over the world this week in politics. And so that was one little segment that I wanted to do. So quick reminder for those of you who are just trickling in and all that. Happy Saturday night. So the way we're doing this is we accept Rumble rants on the Rumble channel. So if you got a question for the second half, send it as a Rumble rant. And if you don't want to send a Rumble rant, questions can be sent via Rumble Rants or on Cash App. You can Cash App me at Caleb Maupin 22. That's a great way to send questions. You can Cash App me at Caleb Maupin 22. That's a great way to reach me because we can't get super chats anymore because we're facing censorship at the hands of YouTube tech monopolists. But that's all okay. So there are a couple other things I was going to talk about before we start answering people's questions. Couple other things I was going to talk about for tonight. The first thing I wanted to talk about, basically just this, right? So yeah, send your questions, Cash App, Caleb Maupin 22, or you can Rumble rant me. But we can't do it on here, unfortunately. But wanted to just mention, so I'm writing this new book that I'm working on. And this book is on Khrushchev's secret speech, the speech denouncing Stalin given by Khrushchev, and how that's part of a wider mindset that has been utilized to destroy anti-imperialist movements. That's basically what my book coming up. It's called Khrushchevism. And in my book, I have a section that I'm working on now. I've published the first, one of the sections of the book. It's actually chapter 3. It's on Jerry Healy. I published that on the website. And on top of that, I'm working on a section in the book about symbols. And in the book, I talk about the Cold War and the defeat of the Soviet Union and the use of symbols. And there are two particular symbols that I talk about. The first of which is the tank. And this is very interesting. So starting in Czechoslovakia in 1968, there was a communist leader who seized power, and his name was Dubček. And Dubček was anti-Soviet. He was a leader of Czechoslovakia, and he wanted to move Czechoslovakia away from the Soviet Union. He wanted to join the International Monetary Fund, and he wanted to end support for the Vietnamese National Liberation Front, and he was basically a pro-U.S. leader of Czechoslovakia. And he aligned himself with the most privileged people in Czechoslovakia, the children of the party elite, the academics, the college students, the people that were musicians or made movies or were in the arts or whatever. Most of the population did not support Dubček. His support was among kind of the party elite that were convinced that if they cozied up to America, they could get a better deal. And they were frustrated with a lot of the censorship. It was a very authoritarian way of doing it. I mean, they were, it was the Eastern Bloc. It was very authoritarian. So the Soviet Union sent its military to remove Dubček in 1968, Prague Spring. And 1968, when the Soviet Union intervened, all over Western media, they showed images of tanks, Soviet tanks rolling into Prague. And then they portrayed the supporters of Dubček, the young, pro-Western young people that liked Beatles music and grew their hair long. They portrayed them as young, peaceful idealists. And then they portrayed the Soviet Union as these tanks rolling in. And that became a trope in Western propaganda against the Soviet Union, the tank, right? And this book that I actually read, this is a very, very good book, Afghanistan, Washington's Secret War. And this book is by a reporter who was in Afghanistan in 1980 when the Soviet Union, sent its military into Afghanistan. And he got to Kabul and he said, "Where are the tanks?" Because every time they showed Afghanistan on the news, they showed a bunch of tanks. Oh, there's tanks everywhere. And he got to the capital of Afghanistan and he couldn't find any tanks. And he went all over the city and he found there's one tank, one Soviet tank in the city. And he's like, this isn't what I saw on TV, because every time they showed Afghanistan and the war in Afghanistan in the 1980s, they showed tanks. And he couldn't find any tanks, but that's all they showed on TV. Now, we know what happened. The reason the Soviet Union went into Afghanistan was because in 1978, Afghanistan had been neutral. They'd had a monarchy that was neutral, and the Soviet Union had provided military training to various leaders in the Afghan military. And there was a pro-communist political party in Afghanistan called the People's Democracy Party, or the People's Democratic Party. And there were a couple generals in the military that were in the People's Democracy Party. The United States pressured the government of Afghanistan to imprison the leaders of the People's Democratic Party and to start basically executing them. And of course, they weren't going to be executed, and they controlled a big section of the military. So in response to not get executed, they took power. And in fact, they broke the walls of the jail down. A couple of them had been arrested, and so they broke the walls of the jail down and freed them. 1978, it was called the Sour Revolution in Afghanistan. And it was a forced revolution. It was premature. The People's Democracy Party, they did not have massive support among the population. Most of the people in Afghanistan didn't live in Kabul or in the cities. They lived in rural areas, and they were deeply conservative. The People's Democracy Party was very secular and modern and atheistic communists, basically. And they basically took power prematurely to protect themselves. And so as soon as they took power, it was revealed that the United States under Jimmy Carter started funding Islamic terrorism against the People's Democracy Party of Afghanistan. Zbigniew Brzezinski bragged about this, and he called it the Afghan trap. And he said that was the plan. And they forced a situation where this government in power in Afghanistan that was aligned with the Soviet Union was facing an Islamist insurgency led by Osama bin Laden and the people who eventually became the Taliban, started fighting against the military government of Afghanistan, the People's Democratic Military Government of Afghanistan. And so the Soviet Union felt they had to move in to protect them. And the Afghan government asked them to send their military in to protect them. And Brzezinski called this the Afghan trap, to force a situation where the Soviet Union felt they had no choice but to move their forces into Afghanistan, and then from there to create a long, demoralizing war against the Soviet Union. It's called the Afghan trap. And of course, the USA boycotted the 1980 Olympics. They said, oh my God, the Soviet Union has invaded Afghanistan. They demonized the Soviet military in Afghanistan. And then tanks were the main way the image of the Soviet intervention was portrayed. And Philip Bonosky, who wrote this book, he never could find any of the tanks. He went there and he said there was only one tank in the capital, but that's all they showed on Western TV. Tanks were a big part of it. Around the world, communists started dividing between those who supported Euro-communism, which was like the French Communist Party, the Italian Communist Party, the Spanish Communist Party, that cut their ties with the Soviet Union. They started calling them the Euros. However, those who defended the Soviet Union were called tankies. Tanks became so much that was a slur. If you were a communist that defended the Soviet government, you were a tanky. And then, 1989, you have Tiananmen Square. And in Tiananmen Square, what's the image that we all know of Tiananmen Square, the 1989 events? It's that guy standing in front of a tank. One lone guy standing there with his flag in front of a tank. And the tank image is brilliant propaganda. Why? Because it erases one side of the argument. There are millions and millions and millions and millions and hundreds of millions of Chinese people who support the Chinese Communist Party because it has raised millions out of poverty, because it's created the second largest economy in the world, because it has done amazing things for China. However, in 1989, when there was a protest against it, we all saw an image where on one side there was a human, there was some guy, and on the other side there was just a cold mechanical piece of machinery, something that is less human than Darth Vader, is a big, scary, mean mechanical thing. That's, so all those millions of people who supported the Chinese Communist Party, they don't count. And the same in Afghanistan. Those women who liked being able to read and who didn't want to have acid poured on their face by Osama bin Laden, they didn't count. They were just represented by tanks. And the people in Czechoslovakia who liked the fact that their country had been fully electrified and raised out of poverty, who liked the fact that they had guaranteed employment and all that, they didn't count. It was just the nice hippies versus the tanks. The tank was the brilliant propaganda move. You erased one side of the argument and you made it a giant tank. And then the opposite side, especially the 1989 image, individuality and freedom against the machine. Folks, governments generally reflect the ruling class of a society. Let's point this out, right? The U.S. government isn't evil because it's a government. The U.S. government is evil because it represents big banks and corporations and monopolies that are keeping the world poor to make themselves rich, and raking in super profits in order to maximize. It's not, the problem isn't the government. The government serves somebody. States are not entities that exist unto themselves. States serve somebody. They say guns don't kill people. People kill people. States don't commit crimes against humanity. People in states, people that control states, commit crimes against humanity. Right? States reflect the interests of the people in them. right? This is, that's one of the things. We're taught to think of states as if they are cold mechanical pieces of machinery. No, states are vehicles through which activity is carried out. And the cold mechanical tank becoming the symbol of the Soviet state or the Chinese state or the Czechoslovakian state or the Afghan state, like that is a brilliant work of propaganda. And the more you look into, and the whole Tiananmen thing, there's a whole lot of lies about that we could debunk. I mean, I've done whole streams where we go into all kinds of things. The students, left the square peacefully, and then the shooting started outside the square. There were a number of Chinese soldiers that were killed. There were sections of the Chinese military killing other sections of the Chinese military. It's much more complicated than we realize. Definitely a tragedy what happened in 1989. No question about it. A lot of innocent people died. It was awful, but it was much more complicated. But the narrative that we have, what does everybody know about Tiananmen Square in 1989? Well, there were these peaceful students singing Kumbaya, and then they ran them all over with tanks. That's not what happened. It's not what happened. And in fact, that tank man scene with the guy who was out there with the flag, that was the day after they had already cleared the square. They'd already cleared the square. And the whole square was full of tanks, and this guy just showed up in the square with his flag all by himself. It wasn't part of the protest. The protests were over at that point. But anyway, tanks are a brilliant part of propaganda. And on top of that, and this brings me to something else that I'm talking about in the upcoming book, statues. Now, this is an interesting one. But during the time of the fall of the Soviet Union, toppling statues was a really, really big thing, right? At the time the Soviet Union was falling, they'd show crowds of people in Russia pulling down statues of Lenin. Crowds of people in Romania pulling down statues of Ceausescu. Crowds of people, gathering to pull down the statue of the leader of the socialist state. What was that? That was imperialism seizing for itself the aesthetics of the French Revolution. What are they doing there? They're killing the king. They're cutting the king's head off. And in some cases, they actually cut the statue's head off, or they stomped on the face of the statue. The mob of peasants killing the king. It's Oedipal, right? The communist leader or the king is the father of the nation, and it is the teenage rebellion. We're oppressed by our father, and we're going to kill our parents. It is the Oedipal aesthetics of the French Revolution, hijacked by imperialism, right? That's what it is. And then later, you took the words right out of my mouth, Rami. Later in Iraq, they did the same thing. And LA Times Weekly revealed that was completely staged. It was a U.S. Army colonel who had the idea to topple the statue of Saddam Hussein. And they assembled the crowd of people, and they got the cameras, and that whole thing was completely staged. That was revealed by the LA Times, but that's what's significant about that is that communism as a movement very much, was a movement that came out of the French Revolution. Marx was inspired by the French Revolution. He wrote a book, 18th Brumaire of Louis Bonaparte. The French Revolution was like the model. And Marxism, communism, was a group of people in Europe who were inspired by the French Revolution. They felt the French Revolution had failed. It did not succeed in accomplishing what it had set out to do. It did not create liberté, égalité, fraternité. And because the French Revolution had failed in accomplishing what they wanted to do, they wanted to continue the French Revolution. 1848, you had the Spring of Nations, where there were uprisings all across Europe, led by Republicans, red Republicans, people that were fighting for the Republic, right? They waved the red flag. During the French Revolution, the peasants had worn red caps. And red, what is red? It is the color of blood. Right? Vengeance. It is the color of anger, right? If you're angry, anger is represented by red. Red is also the color of sexual passion, right? Roses are associated with romance, Valentine's Day, red hearts. Red is the color of sexual passion. And the French Revolution was very much Oedipal and libidinal. It was, in French society, people are very, very the king is the absolute ruler. The noble has absolute power over the peasant. They actually had a practice called prima nocta. that existed in France before the French Revolution. And Frederick Engels mentions this in his pamphlet, Socialism, Utopian and Scientific. It's depicted in the movie Braveheart. They show it happening in Scotland. It did not happen in Scotland. That's something made up by Mel Gibson or Hollywood. It happened in France. In France, before the Revolution, when a peasant would get married, the local noble would have sex with the wife before the peasant had the right to do it. And it was a way to humiliate peasant men, right? At the time, women were viewed as property, but the idea was peasant men were also property. And it was a way to humiliate them. So there was a lot of humiliation, degradation. Peasants were not allowed to look landlords in the face. It was people were holding in their anger. People's sex lives were very, very controlled. In order to overthrow feudalism in France, they gave everyone the ability to unleash their anger, go and kill the noble and cut his head off, go and unleash your sexual passion. And the Marquis de Sade, from whom the word sadism is derived, he was a key agitator of the French Revolution. So much so that he argued they should have theaters where naked women were on display in order to keep the passion of the revolution going. And it was Oedipal. One of the big important events of the French Revolution was the March to Versailles. What happened was there were all these peasants who were starving. There were crop failures, and they were in Paris, and they were hungry. And so the revolutionaries, the Jacobins or whatever, said to them, let's march to Versailles. The king's palace was in Versailles. It's a bit of a distance from Paris. We'll all march to Versailles and we'll beg the king for food. They were not marching out there to overthrow the king. They were marching out there to beg the king for food because the king was their father. The king, historically, he would step in and protect the peasants from the nobility, right? And the peasants thought the king was the good boss at the top. And, it's a lot like in corporations, right? The CEO is always the good, benevolent figure. It's your local manager who's the asshole, who's yelling at you for coming in late, who is driving you to do more, right? And that's kind of how feudalism was set up. The king was this great, benevolent CEO, leader of the nation, who was always, portrayed as doing nice things. It was the local noble who every peasant hated. And so the peasants had fled to the city. They were hungry and they needed food. And so the revolutionaries said, let's go beg the king, our benevolent father, to give us food. And they marched them all to Versailles. And when they got there, they arrested the king and they eventually cut his head off. And it was very much Oedipal, the Oedipus complex, right? The desire of a teenager to kill their father or to kill their mother in the case of a female, right? It's the rage of a teenager at the parental figure. You want to overthrow your parent or whatever, the Oedipal impulse. Leftism, leftist politics, the left comes back to the French Revolution, right? In the French Revolution, after they overthrew the king, they had a national assembly. And the people that were more conservative and still loyal to the king sat on the right. And it was the radicals, they sat on the left. That's where left and right come from. Leftism is historically tapping into people's Oedipal desire, the desire of the teenager within you to kill your father, to kill your parent, and libidinal desire, the idea to unleash your sexual impulses, unleash your anger onto society. That is what leftism historically taps into. And what we saw with the toppling of the statues, what we saw was the Oedipal aesthetics of the French Revolution becoming hijacked by the imperialists. And that is what brings me to my point. Now, I've got a number of things to talk about in this upcoming book on Khrushchevism. I've done a huge amount of research, and the chapter on Jerry Healy is already on the website, how they used Khrushchevism to dismantle Jerry Healy and all of that. But the toppling of the statue, you'll notice that during the first term of Donald Trump, statues were being toppled all across the United States. It was the same kind of thing. And it was, and there's some specifics I can get into. I'm not going to get into tonight about how that played out in certain leftist circles, but symbols are very, very important. And that the reason we're in such a confused place politically, and the reason I don't even call myself a communist anymore, I'm an innovationist, is because the aesthetics and emotions of leftism at this point are the property of imperialism. Let me repeat that. The aesthetics and emotions of leftism, the Oedipus complex, and the libidinal drive are the property of imperialism. Right? And look, all of these impulses are important, right? If you had no libido, there'd be no reproduction. If you had no Oedipus drive, you would never want to go out on your own and establish your independence, right? Um, you know, and that's important, but there's another drive that we all have, and it's called transference, parental transference. We all want a parent. We do. We all want a parent who will love us. We all want a parent that will care for us and be there for us. We all want to go out and do something good and have a parental-like figure be proud of us. All right, parental transference, that's also an impulse. And if a child didn't long for their parent, if that wasn't innate within you, you would die. I mean, when you're a baby, you can't survive on your own. All a baby can do by itself is shit, right? It depends on an adult to eat. It depends on an adult for everything. And that the longing for a parent, this innate drive for a parent, that's also innate. Your libido is innate. Your Oedipus complex is innate, and it serves a purpose. And so does the longing for a parent and the parental transference feelings that continue up through life. They talk about how many people they marry somebody who's like the parent they had of the opposite spouse. This is something that people, when people like Sigmund Freud, it's like, your wife, if you're a man, is a lot like your mother. Your husband, if you're a woman, is a lot like your father. And people notice that, right? That the feelings that you have for your parent get transferred in other fields of life, right? And that you seek out mentors in life, and that is all part of this, right? And it all serves its purpose. But we live in a society where the libidinal and Oedipal impulse is amped up like crazy. And it's amped up like crazy. And it is, right? And, the desire to kill your parent, the desire to kill authority figures, right? That is amped up like crazy. We have a media that pumps sex and violence at us constantly. And then on top of that, and let me get to this part. I am, in a way, I am a very lucky person in that me and my father in particular didn't get along. I moved out of my parents' house as soon as I turned 18. I'm lucky because of that, right? And there were times where I didn't have enough food when I was in my, I was hungry and whatever, but I was always on my own. And I'm thankful for that because I know there are many younger people that I know that are stuck living with their parent, and they are miserable. And they're absolutely miserable. And it's because of the economy. It's because of the fact that, the rent is too damn high and the good paying jobs aren't there. And so many people in their 20s and 30s even that I know are stuck living with their parent, and they're miserable because your parent is not just your landlord. They're your parent. And the amount of freedom that you have and the amount of dignity that you have as an adult is not there if you are living on your own, right? And let me add, there is a certain type of very, very toxic parent that I have seen out there. And I will be straight. I have seen this so many times among people my age and younger, where there is a toxic parent in their life who is lonely and has an adult child living with them. And the worst fear of that toxic parent is their adult child going out on their own. And I've seen this so many times. And every time the child starts to get their life together, starts to get a good paying job, starts making a group of friends they might want to move in with, the parent panics. And that parent has leverage. And that parent is often constantly denigrating their adult child. Why can't you get your life together? I have to take care of you. I have to pay for you. You're a screw up. You're a loser. But secretly, the parent enjoys having that leverage over their adult child. It's sick. And they enjoy having that ability, having someone who lives with them, someone who's dependent on them, who they have leverage over. And I have seen this so many times of the toxic parent who is lonely, who having their adult child live with them and not have the dignity of adulthood gives them power and validation, and they are desperate to hold on to it to the detriment of their adult child. They are sabotaging their adult child. They're doing everything they can to make sure their adult child does not go out on their own. This is so toxic. But the anger that younger people have that are trapped in this kind of permanent teenage existence, the anger that they have is massive, right? The humiliation when their parent says to them, you're a screw up, you're a failure. The anger they have is massive, but they can't acknowledge it. They can't acknowledge it because they live with their parent. They live with them. And so it gets projected. That anger, they find somebody on the internet who is a replacement for their dad or for their mom that they can hate. And so the Oedipal desires are there. They're really mad at that toxic parent that they live with, but they don't have the courage. They just can't. In order to keep living in their life circumstances, they can't let it out. So in their internet life and in their political life, the Oedipal feelings are amped up like you wouldn't believe. Right? This is fascinating to me. Fascinating to me. And so the internet is full of people that are looking for their dad. They're looking for their dad to tear him down. That's what the internet is. They're looking for somebody who is a stand-in for their dad that they are really mad at and they can't acknowledge. Right? And so the Oedipal, they want to tear the statue down. They want to tear that statue down. They want to cut off the king's head. They want to, and it's really, they want to behead their parent. Right? This is fascinating to me. But we live in an age where the Oedipal feelings are amped up like you wouldn't believe. Where with the sex and the violence everywhere and the libido is amped up like you wouldn't believe. And so, of course, the aesthetics of leftism are everywhere. The red flag and the rebellion, burn it down, tear it down, pull down the statue, all that's everywhere. However, that's not what held socialist countries together. Why is it that Khrushchev's secret speech was so devastating? Why was Khrushchev's secret speech so devastating? Was it because Stalin never did anything wrong? No. It was so devastating because the Soviet people had gotten through World War II, a devastating, horrendous event in which 27 million people died. And there had been a voice on the radio leading them through that war, assuring them that their sacrifice was worth it, assuring them that they would see victory, that things would get better. And that voice was the voice of Stalin. And when they were raising their country up from nothing and building those power plants and building those oil refineries and collectivizing agriculture and bringing tractors to the country, there was a voice encouraging them to do it, who would show up at their factories and give awards to the person who worked the hardest. That was Stalin. And you bet Stalin hurt a lot of people. There's no way Stalin could not have hurt a lot of people. Nobody in Stalin's position could not have hurt a lot of people. A lot of people who went to gulags shouldn't have been there. I mean, and even some of Stalin's biggest defenders will tell you that. Stalin hurt a lot of people, no question about it. And Stalin was leading a country that was in circumstances that none of us can imagine. But he was the father of the country. And so when Khrushchev got up there after Stalin's death and took a dump all over Stalin and said everything they said about Stalin in Western media was true, that devastated the Soviet Union. That set the stage for the fall of the Soviet Union. And that's why Deng Xiaoping very famously said when being interviewed, he said, "We will never do to Mao, what Khrushchev did to Stalin." And he said to the reporter, "Write this down. We will never do to Mao what Khrushchev did to Stalin." And that's parental transference. Right? Stalin, for whatever, all of his flaws, whatever, he was playing the role of the father of the country. Right? And that what they call cult of personality right? That's what Khrushchev, he coined that phrase, cult of personality. Cult of personality, right? The war on cult of personality is a very big part of liberalism. It's a very, very big part of liberalism. And our culture right now, we are more leftist than you would ever believe. We're more Oedipal, kill your parents, kill your father, tear down the statue, cut off the king's head. We're more sexual and more rage-filled, more libidinal than ever before. But underneath it all, we're all longing for the love of a parent. And that's beneath everything. And that is what the media and everything in society is working overtime to inoculate us against. Oh my God, you can't have a hero. You can't admire somebody. No, they're all a fraud. They're all a phony. Oh my, they are really afraid of us tapping into our parental transference. Because that is what held the Soviet Union together. Look, what fatherly figure have more people died for in history than any other? God. I mean, it's not a strong argument in God's favor, but throughout history, millions and millions and millions of people have gone out onto the battlefield and raised their sword or raised their rifle or raised their spear and laid down their lives for their heavenly Father. And that parental transference is just as powerful of a force, We all long to be taken care of. We all long to belong. We all long to be cared for, to look up with awe and admiration at a force more powerful than us. We all long to love in a filial way. This is part of the human experience. And it's a part of the human experience they're trying to inoculate us against. They're working really, really hard to get us to not feel that way. And that's what I was complaining about at the beginning of the stream. Forgive me. I worked out today, it's spring weather. Maybe I'm grumpier than usual, but I'm just saying it, right? We all want to think for ourselves. No one taught us nothing, right? We all want to define ourselves as individuals. We all want to keep digging that hole deeper and deeper, right? No one teaches me anything. I did it all myself. I'm an individual consumer. This is my individual niche. No one will tell me what to think. No one will teach me anything. We're all digging that hole, but deep down, we're all feeling atomized. We're all feeling isolated. There's so many people that are longing for that filial love, that love that comes from looking up. One point that new atheists will make, which is, if you think about it, it's kind of a good point, is they'll say, why does God need to be worshipped? Why does God need to be worshipped? Why? He's an all-powerful deity, right? All-powerful deity. Why in the world does he care if you get your ass out of bed on Sunday and march yourself over to church? Why does he care? Why? Why does he need you to validate him? Why does he need you to validate him by praying to God, singing songs in praise? Why does he need you to do that? Why? Why is God, the all-powerful creator of the universe, why is he so insecure and so desperate for validation that he needs you to paint pictures of him? He needs you to sing songs about him. He needs you to memorize passages from his holy book. Why does he need that? I've got news for you all. He doesn't. He doesn't. You need that. You need that. I'm just dead honest with you. He does not need it. If nobody praised God for 1,000 years, God would still be as just powerful. You need that. You need that. And that is what they are afraid of. And that, yes, the revolution to overthrow feudalism was libidinal and Oedipal. And yes, the revolution to overthrow the King of France in 1792 was libidinal. The revolution that is coming, the revolution that is coming, the revolution that will overturn the dying Western system of individualism and money comes first. The revolution that will overturn the old colonial power and the London and Wall Street bankers, the revolution that is coming is going to be a revolution of love and reconciliation. It is going to be a revolution of people coming together, and it is going to be a revolution of people humbling themselves. The aesthetics of the coming revolution will not be leftist aesthetics. The aesthetics of the coming revolution will be filial. The aesthetics of the coming revolution will be community and loving. The aesthetics of the coming revolution will be about finding strength by giving yourself to something higher. And the sooner that we come to realize that the revolution that is coming will not be a revolution to burn it down and tear it down. The revolution that's coming will be a revolution to hold it together and stand arm in arm with our brothers and be solid as a rock in the face of their decaying social order and its decadence. If we can come to understand that, if we can come to understand that the revolution that is coming is going to be a revolution of solidarity and brotherhood and humility and sacrifice, we are taking the first steps. I love families. I love communities. I love nations. And I am dramatically opposed to globalism, imperialism that is grinding us all into poverty and breaking us all into atomized, isolated individuals. And I want families, communities, nations to come together to defeat globalism, imperialism. I want a government of action that will fight for working families. That is what I want. And that is what I am seeking to build. I am seeking to build a society where the banks and the factories and the centers of economic power operate to serve society overall. A government that organizes the economy so that growth is no longer restrained and limited. A government that is capable of pulling the best out of all of us. A government that invests in the people as the greatest asset. A government that raises our kids to be engineers and scientists and brilliant thinkers, not drug addicts, not criminals, not chronically unemployed people. A government that increases the population instead of driving it down. A government that unleashes human creative power and invests in every single one of us so that we can go out and build and construct and grow. I want a government that is a pro-humanity government. I want a government, a pro-growth government. I want a government that is aiming for the future and unleashing the best in all of us. And I'm telling you, the road to such a government is not killing the king and cutting his head off. And the road to such a government is not unleashing our sexual impulses and tear it down, burn it down. The revolution that is coming is going to be a revolution of brotherhood and solidarity. And it's going to be a revolution of looking up, a revolution of finding satisfaction and living for something greater than yourself. That's the revolution that is coming. And I want to build that revolution. And that is why I'm neither left nor right. I'm an innovationist. And the Center for Political Innovation is on the cutting edge of anti-imperialism. We're not pandering to leftism. We're certainly not pandering to the right wing and free markets. We have a vision for a whole new world, a pro-growth government of action that will fight for working families. So I hope that you all will continue to engage with us. And I hope that you'll listen to what I have to say. And I hope that you'll engage with this community and come to understand our perspective. We're here to teach you. We're not here to engage in demagogy. We're not here to tell you how you already feel and emotionally reinforce what you already believe. We're here to teach you something. And I'm learning from you. And I've learned from all of you. So many of you have emailed me over the years. So many of you have raised questions and taught me a lot. I'm here to learn from you. You're here to learn from me. But we're here to learn. It requires humility to be able to learn. I'm here to learn. I'm here to love. I'm here to build. I'm here to construct. That's what I'm here to do. And I'm excited. I am so excited for our convention that's coming up this summer that will be the biggest event that we have ever done. I'm so excited about it. And I'm so excited for all the amazing anti-imperialist work that we are going to do. This is a great time to be alive. We are all very, very lucky to be alive at this time because we have one of the greatest tasks before us, the task of building a movement to save our country from imperialism and bring America into the rising new world in the East and the new economy. It's really, really amazing what we have been entrusted by history to do. And I appreciate deeply every single one of you that is brave enough to walk this road with me and not be intimidated and not back down. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to the Center for Political Innovation. And on that note, folks, names and locations, I will call you out as I see you. Names and locations, Who is with us tonight? Names and locations, I will call you all out as I see you. Who is in the chat tonight? Who is with us? Jenny is in Cincinnati. Happy Saturday, everybody. Lawrence Johnson's in Chicago. I hope you're coming to the convention. Luca is in Singapore. Bob is in Troy, New York. Alex is in Brazil. Very, very good. Ryan is in Kansas City. Mr. Caleb visit Yemen again. Deha in Seattle. St. David's, Bermuda. Scott in Maryland. Jacob in Wisconsin. Carl in Washington. Tommy D in San Jose. Jared in Houston. Robbie in Montana. Phil in Brooklyn, in the house, still in the hospital. We love you, Phil. Shout out to you, Phil. Gus Wynn in Four Oaks. Chris in Kew Gardens. Anthony in Texas. Deb in Mexico. Gavin in Moline. Courtney in Northern Virginia. Philip in Scablands, Washington. Brendan in the kitchen. Lionel in Melbourne, Australia. Tommy One Love, the seasoned noob in China. Names and locations, folks. Names and locations. I will call you all out as I see you. Occupied Northern Mexican Territory of Texas. Boris in Indianapolis. Chris in Salt Lake City. Not left or right. Anything in between. Damn right. Damn right. Damn right. Folks, I am excited about everything the Center for Political Innovation is doing. So, shout out to Penny. If you're watching, Penny, you may have other things to do, but if you're watching, Penny. So Penny called me up this week, and she said, Caleb, what can I do? Oh, we got Vincent in Bangkok. All right. She said, what can I do about the bombing of Yemen? It's so wrong, and I'm worried that World War III will happen. I'm worried that my son might get, oh, Alex and Susan in Montreal, the people just keep coming. This is awesome. I'm worried my son might get sent to this war. I have a young son, and what can I do? And I said, well, we got a good crew of people in Minneapolis. Maybe you can organize a protest. Maybe you can organize a protest. And she said, okay. And she called people and she said, who wants to go out on Saturday morning to a protest? And a couple people gave her a maybe. Well, she was the only one. But did that stop Penny? No, it did not. Our very dedicated organizer, Penny, who organized our great workshop last month that had to deal with crazy protesters, Penny went out by herself, right? And I think this is absolutely awesome. There are many people that if they were the only one there for the protest, they'd turn around. Not Penny. So Penny, even though she couldn't find other people in Minneapolis, other members in that area were not available, didn't stop her. Penny went to downtown Minneapolis and had a one-person protest against the bombing of Yemen. And I think that is absolutely awesome, right? I don't know if I'd be brave enough to do a one-person protest. She was. This is CPI member Penny. And I hope that this will inspire people in the Minneapolis area to join her next time, because we've done many great things in many great cities, but this is the first time I've seen someone brave enough to have a single person protest. This was awesome.
Stop bombing Yemen. Talk to the Houthis. Stop bombing Yemen. Talk to the Houthis. Donald Trump promised to stop the wars, not to start new wars. We're spending $17 million a day in the Red Sea to bomb the poorest country on earth. We could use that $17 million to build hospitals, schools, pay teachers. We can pay Americans to rebuild our bridges and our roads and schools and hospitals. We spend almost $50 million for each Reaper drone that is attacking women and children in the poorest country on earth. That money could be spent on schools and hospitals. We can employ Americans to rebuild our cities. Stop bombing Yemen. Talk to the Houthis. Stop bombing Yemen. Talk to the Houthis. But
yeah, and she didn't just do it there. That I think was near the public transportation in Minneapolis. She then went to the park in downtown Minneapolis. I mean, this is absolutely awesome. She deserves a medal for this, all by herself, right? Even the other people in town weren't available. She did it by herself. Look at this.
Stop bombing Yemen. Talk to the Houthis. We voted for Donald Trump to stop the wars, not to start new ones. Yemen is blocking ships in the Red Sea because Israel is bombing children and women in Gaza and blocking food and starving civilians. It costs up to $50 million a day for these drones that we're using to attack Yemen. 12 drones in a year is almost $50 billion, $500 million. We're spending $17 million a day in the Red Sea. Stop bombing Yemen. Bring our troops home. Help the hurricane victims. Help the wildfire victims. Invest in America. America first, not Israel first. Stop bombing Yemen. Talk to the Houthis.
Yeah. And so all by herself with that big poster and with a lot of leaflets with our statement about Yemen and all of that, she went out there and spread the word. That is awesome. It is absolutely brave. It takes real courage to go out by yourself. My salute to you, Penny. That was absolutely awesome. And I am confident that next time you will not be the only person out there. Next time you will be joined by many others. If I was out there, I would have been there with you. And This shows how dedicated you are. And it is that kind of dedication. That's what I'm telling you about CPI becoming more potent every day, right? When we first started, we had a lot of people who would never have in a million years dared go out by themselves with a sign about, yeah. I mean, and that's the thing is like, we are becoming more potent every day because the people who come around are stronger than ever. Our Saturday meetings just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And we are going to have an amazing convention. I'm headed to Chicago in 2 weeks. I'm headed to LA in 4 weeks, and we are going to build. We are building the movement that we need. And this is all culminating in the convention in Chicago. The convention in Chicago. This will be the biggest event Center for Political Innovation has ever done. Ever, right? It's going to be huge. July 12th, 2025. And you want to be there. It is going to be absolutely awesome. David Fox is coming in from Australia. And my goodness, it is going to be absolutely awesome. So I am very, very, very pumped. We are building a unique anti-imperialist movement right now. Something really amazing. We are blazing new trail, and I am so proud of what we're doing now at this point. So if you want to, send questions via, we can do Rumble rants, or you can Cash App me, or Cash App. You can Cash App me. I can't take super chats anymore because I'm being censored. So that is how we can take questions. So Cash App me, Caleb Moppin 22, and send your question, or send a Rumble rant. Now, we got a few Rumble rants. I'm going to start answering people's Rumble rants. All right, first one, at PutinBot Gaming. PutinBot Gaming is a cool guy. He's out in Montana. He works on, I don't know if I want to reveal your identity. I know you're involved with some other YouTube channels and stuff, but cool. Great. Thank you for the super chat. Much appreciated. And then Hempcar says, you said the communist red flag represents libido or rage. Isn't China a rather conservative nation, unlike, say, France? Well, Hempcar, a couple things. First of all, China was a feudal country at the time of the Chinese Revolution, and there was a huge amount of rage in the early years of the Chinese Revolution. The peasant uprisings. Read Mao's essay, Report on an Investigation of the Peasant Movement in Hunan, where he talks about how violent the peasants were when they overthrew the landlords, the Cultural Revolution, etc. But my understanding is that in China, like in a lot of communist countries, they have something called the Young Pioneers, right? It's like the Young Pioneers. So the way it generally works in like Soviet-style communist systems, right, is that every child joins the Young Pioneers. And the Young Pioneers is like the Boy Scouts, right? It's like an organization that is at your school, and you go camping in the countryside, and you go hiking, and you learn about communism. Every child does that. Now, after a little while, when you get into like high school age, if you want to be involved in politics, and if you're high achieving enough, right? If you're exhibiting the values of the party, you can apply to be in the Youth League, the Communist Party's youth organization. And that's generally, it's people like, it's high school aged until the age of 30, right? You can join before you're 30. And that's the Youth League, right? And that's different. Not everyone joins the Youth League. Everyone joins the Young Pioneers, but you don't join the Youth League. The Youth League is only for people that are accepted, and really only for people that want to be in politics. And then after you've been in the Youth League, you then graduate into the party, right? If you're considered, somebody who's, viable to hold political office, right? To be a governor or a sheriff or a mayor or whatever, then you can join the party. Right. And the party is generally, you would join around the time you're 30. Right. And that's generally how it is in old style communist systems. Right. And in China, every child joins the Youth League. or the Young Pioneers. I'm sorry, the Youth League is in high school. They join the Young Pioneers, right, which is the Boy Scouts or the Girl Scouts. When they join that, they get these red scarves that they wear around their neck. Now, in China, because they have a bright red flag that is the symbol of the country, every child is taught that this red scarf that they're wearing around their neck is their little piece of the Chinese flag, and that the red stands for the blood of all the people who died to create new China. But yeah, I mean, China, it is a communist country, right? Red was the flag of communism coming out of the movement to overthrow feudalism. China was a feudal country at the time of its revolution, and there was a huge amount of adolescent libidinal rage. I mean, I am particularly fascinated by Mao Zedong. Mao Zedong very much had an attachment to teenagers. He had been a high school principal, believe it or not. The first essay Mao ever wrote was about the importance of physical education and why it's important to have exercise in school. And Mao, you read Mao's personal writings, you read Red Star Over China by Edgar Snow, that has extensive interviews with Mao. The whole libidinal teenage thing was a really big part of Mao's identity. And the Cultural Revolution in China was teenagers being mobilized by Mao to overthrow the political establishment. And it was very bad in a lot of ways. It was not good. But that's part of their heritage. That's how they broke with feudalism. That's how new China was created. So what I'm telling you, I'm not saying that's not part of the heritage of communism. It certainly is. What I'm saying is that we are in a new stage, and that libidinal, Oedipal feelings are not the basis of a healthy political movement in our time. And I am adamant about that. They are the property of the imperialists, and that they very much have perfected the art of utilizing Oedipal and libidinal drives and suppressing parental transference at all costs as a mechanism for destroying. That's how they destroyed the global communist movement, and that's how they've destroyed many different communist organizations. The phobia of cult of personality, the kill your father, kill your parent, that is very much a psychological mechanism for destroying organizations. And I'm writing an entire book about this. I've done years of research, and right, this is really, really important. And that if we don't acknowledge from the beginning that we have to build a movement that taps into people's filial feelings, they're willing to give up themselves, and they're willing to give themselves to something higher, right? If we can't acknowledge that we are going to build a movement that has a conservative edge to it, we will fail, right? If we don't take on Khrushchevism head on, right? Look, I'm just telling you, this is why I don't call myself a communist anymore. Communists suck, and I'll just be honest with you. Every communist thinks they're Stalin, thinks they're Lenin, and they don't want to learn anything from anybody. They all just want everyone to know they're the Stalin. They're the Stalin. And I am so, I don't want to name any names here, but I have dealt with so many people. The people that I can work with are people that I will learn from, people that can teach me something. I think of the great comrades we have in CPI. I've learned from all of them. They've taught me something, and they've learned from me. And, but so many, especially these young men who join communist groups, no one can ever teach them anything. They think they're Che Guevara. They think they're Fidel Castro. They think they're the great leader, and they don't want to learn anything. They don't want that. No. They're just there to prove something. They've got some Oedipal shit going on. They've got some libidinal shit going on, and they just want everyone to know that they're the Lenin, they're the Stalin. And they're gone in a couple years, right? They work it out, or they get a girlfriend or whatever, and they're gone. But the whole time they're around, they're jealous, they're manipulative, they're always looking for some way to position themselves to be important. They don't want to build a group. And I'm just telling you right now, the internet is not real life. The internet is not real life. Let me say that again. The internet is not real life. The internet is not real life. And if what you're concerned about is being cool on the internet, you will never build a real revolutionary movement. And if what I was concerned about was being cool on the internet, I would obviously have operated in a very, very different way. I'm building a real organization here. We have a job to do. We're getting the job done. And in the real world, if you want to get things done, you need allies. You can't be in a competition with everyone, right? You need to work with people, right? I think about, this, I am so proud. I'm going to show this video now. So our member, John McCarthy, right? He represented us at the Uhuru convention. And he did a great job, a great job, representing us. They gave him an award for all the work he's done as a CPI member for Uhuru. I want you all to see this. I want to just let you know, the Communist Party USA didn't give two shits about Uhuru. They didn't. They wrote one little article in their newspaper, and that was it. There are various organizations I could name. They didn't give two shits about Uhuru. They did nothing for Uhuru, right? They've got millions of dollars. They're making millions of dollars in social media revenue. They've got all this money to make videos of themselves and all that. They didn't do shit for Uhuru. They claim to support Russia, some of them. They didn't do shit for Uhuru because they're more concerned about looking cool on the internet. And this is how much CPI was honored at Uhuru's convention.
Comrades, let's give a round of applause for all the great vocals. So I'm just going to be presenting an award, and I'm really, really honored and excited to do that. And this award is called the Voice of Resistance Award. Wow. And this goes to a comrade that we met very shortly after the FBI raids in July 29th of 2022. There was a conference held by the Center for Political Innovation in Chicago. Yeah. Len and several other comrades went out to that conference where we met this person that I'm about to present this award to. The mystery is growing. And from that day forward, this comrade was, he was, as like Penny's poem, two-fisted in the fight for anti-colonial free speech. Every opportunity there was to say, the Uhuru 3, drop the charges on the Uhuru 3, you need to be talking about this case, he was there. Julian Assange's brother and father came to Chicago, he was there. Any politician that was holding forums or anything online that was going on in the chat, it was flooded with comments from this comrade talking about the Uhuru 3. He's been to St. Louis many times, marched for reparations with us, been to our convention now year after year since then. We love this comrade. He is incredibly witty, incredibly bold, and incredibly principled. And we present the Voice of Resistance Award to John McCarthy.
Thank you. Yeah, I guess I'm supposed to say something tomorrow, so maybe I should save. But thank you for this, and thank you for giving me something to fight for. Yeah, it's been an honor to fight for you because you're fighting for everybody.
Moving right along.
Of the slave owners, and so you cannot look for justice there. What you have to fight is the political thing that it revolves around. This is what we took to help the lawyers to understand. The lawyers kept saying, I've never seen anything like this before. I've never seen them do this kind of thing. I don't know why they take so long to make this ruling. I don't know, except because it's a political struggle. And they're dealing with the political situation in the world. Even that's why they're talking about Ukraine. Why in the hell are they putting me in jail because of Ukraine? Because we went against their objectives to dominate the world. They talking about, and I appreciate what John was able to talk about. Because you're on the precipice of a third world war that can destroy the whole damn planet, and they want to put me in jail for being opposed to the fact that they are using Ukraine as a war to make against Russia. And Russia is armed to the teeth. I saw a report, a Russian at one juncture was talking about, this is before Trump came to power. that Russia is the only country that could reduce America to a parking lot. You understand? So this is the thing, they're going to put us in this situation, and with the NGA being right down the street from here, if Russia decides to strike back, who the hell are they going to hit? You understand what I'm saying? Where is it going to fall? Right in my neighborhood, where we're trying to do the Black Power blueprint. That's it. Finally, this. The right to speech, free speech is precious. But we're talking about anti-colonial free speech. And one of the biggest problems we've had historically is the fact that the colonizer white left, the colonial left, the left colonizers have also fought against the right of African people to define our reality. They fought harder. They've given logic. They've given ideology. They've given all of this to the reason why African people should not be able to fight for our own freedom on our own terms. This is what the biggest fight we have, and that's one of the reasons this is important. One of the reasons you're important. One of the reasons we have more than 130 odd cities right now, and people don't even understand some of what they see. The growing influence, the growing ability of white people to support reparations. People see this data, they don't know where it's coming from. They don't know that it's a part of the strategy of African People's Socialist Party to break us out of the isolation they've imposed on us. They don't know that in the middle of the most oppressed sector of the population, black people are coming together under some difficult circumstances to talk about the critical questions that's impacting the whole world. This is happening under the leadership of the advanced attachment of and we made it hard for them. We made it hard for them. How do you say that in St. Louis? Come on, say it hard. Is it hard? Hard? How do you say that? We made it hard. We made it real hard for them to do that. I mean, by the time we got back to sentencing, the judge had received more than 1,600 letters supporting us. They're not accustomed to that. The dope pushers don't get 1,600.
And the Center for Political Innovation. And to start the day, we will be hearing a solidarity statement from the Center for Political Innovation.
Right on.
And yes, who have stood with the Uhuru Three since the day of the FBI raids on July 29th, 2022. John McCarthy is a longtime activist from the Chicago area, associate of Caleb Maupin, and member of the Center for Political Innovation. He's a fierce advocate for anti-colonial free speech and supportive hands-off Uhuru. Please help me welcome Comrade John McCarthy. Uhuru.
Uhuru. Uhuru. The Center for Political Innovation is deeply grateful to the Uhuru movement for standing up to the FBI, for fighting back, for winning, and for showing the rest of us how it's done. The fact that you stood up to the FBI and won has given hope and courage to a lot of other people. Now here comes the controversial part. The fact that you stood up and fought and won has given courage to a lot of other people, including, it would seem, to the President of the United States. Like Chairman was talking about yesterday, when Trump ran in 2016, he promised to repair relations between the United States and Russia. Then all hell broke loose. The Atlanticists sent their intelligence community and the Democratic Party against him with all this lawfare. And his response was to cave.
Yes.
His people cut plea deals. They turned on each other. They ratted each other out. Instead of a fight back, they did damage control. This time, though, it seems to be quite different. He's meeting with Putin. He's defending parts of Putin's argument. He's negotiating a ceasefire, and they're restoring the consulates and the embassies that had been shut down or de-staffed. So what's different? The world has changed. What changed the world? The courage of the Uhuru Three and the fight back of the African People's Socialist Party. Now, this isn't settled. we still may not change direction or stop this war. But what you have done has given us a fighting chance to stop this world-ending war. And the Center for Political Innovation thanks you. We salute you, and we vow not to waste the opportunity that you have won for us. Uhuru. Uhuru.
Thank you so much for that solidarity statement. I mean, it really just shows how the party and the chairman is leading this revolution and is influencing the world as he always has been doing. But this is such an incredible time to be a part of the movement. And now I'm excited.
And political leadership, we had the ability to be able to start meeting with them, I think it was about a year in advance. So we went through a lot of pre-trial political education by the chairman, and I just think that the legal team, I just saluted it. They were magnificent. They did hear it. They internalized what the chairman was saying, and we can hopefully people can talk a little bit about that. But it was very, very important. I just want to, by the way, before I start, I want to really salute John and CPI, and I really appreciate that statement. I really appreciate that, and I think that was a really profound, insight into the significance of the Uhuru 3 case. I think S.G. Mwezi, the Secretary General of the party, Mwezi Odom, who is also the chair of the Hands Off Uhuru, made that second video, and that is just, I think, is very, very dynamic and really gives the sense of the whole movement.
We made it a point to say that we're not going to try to convince the court, the judge, that they should be African internationalists, that they should be opposed to colonialism. That's not our task. Our task is to raise up the fact that you say you have a constitution. That's your constitution. You wrote it when I was enslaved. It's not mine, First Amendment, it's yours, etc. And we're going to put it to the test. Do you actually believe in it? And guess what? There were a lot of people who we were talking about the cross currents that was happening in this country, the contest between sectors of bourgeoisie. Tucker Carlson. I was seen and heard by more than 3 million people in just a couple of days on Tucker Carlson. People say, you're talking to Tucker Carlson? I say, you're damn right I'm talking to Tucker Carlson. They say, you're talking to Scott Ritter. If he'll talk to me, I'm talking to Scott Ritter. I love talking to Scott Ritter because Tucker Carlson and Scott Ritter had a relationship with white people. The white left does not have a relationship with white people. They just have a relationship with other white leftists. I say if I can talk to white people, I know I can convince white people better what's in their best interest. And we can join this thing together. Fight on free speech. Fight on free speech. Do you believe in it or not? And so the white left say, hell no, I don't believe it. Shut up. That's what they would say. Say, we believe it as long as you don't listen to, as long as you don't have anything to do with Tucker Carlson. If somebody came up to us, and when we were in Washington, D.C. at a demonstration and said, because we had a relationship, I think might have been with John's CPI, that they were not going to have anything to do with quitters. I said, bye. CPI was first out of the damn gate in terms of defense of this movement and defense of the right to free speech. And we got people who are now, they're so thin-skinned. White people are thin-skinned. They're the ones who created niggers and goops and all these other terrible things, but you can't say anything. They're so thin-skinned, their feelings were hurt. I'm living under the worst kind of terror, and all my food is in your refrigerator, and you mad at me because I tell the world that's the case. This is the most ridiculous situation. That's what we live with. You know, that's what we used to live with, but we don't play that no more, and we ain't scared.
All right. All right. So we do have a few more Rumble rants. As I said, if you we can accept questions via Rumble rant or Cash App. Next we have Checkpoint Charlie says, I know you said that Rumble rant is problematic, but I found registering a Cash App account too intrusive. Is there another option? I mean, you can join on the Patreon. That's one thing you can do. You can join on the Patreon. Go to Patreon, Caleb Maupin. I'm trying to think if there's other ways you can send us money. I don't know. I wish I had a PayPal, but unfortunately I got banned from PayPal. So there you go. Cash App works, Rumble rant works, etc. So, all right. Putin Bot Gaming out in Montana says the first rant glitched. I just wanted to say I thank you, and I'm amazed at how much overlap there is on the populist left and right. I am a right winger, and I'm with you. I love your talk on the TMI show. Oh, great. Well, hey, and the TMI show is awesome. Go check out Manila and Ted. They do great stuff, and I hope to be on that show once again. Going on Due Dissonance tomorrow, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're talking about a book that somebody wrote about something that we never talk about on here because we don't want to get censored. But yeah, that'll be good. That'll be good. So there we go. But yeah, Juan Natolami says, can the global South, victim of environmental damage and plunder of neoliberal growth, develop without technological sovereignty? Or should they align with China at the base of the value chain? Well, first of all, the thing about ecological, environmentalism is a mechanism used by the imperialists to keep countries in poverty. Okay? Environmentalism is brought to you by the Ford Foundation, brought to you by ExxonMobil, BP, Shell and Chevron, Sierra Club, and that's how they keep African countries from building power plants. It's bad for the environment. It'll kill the fish, right? It is a mechanism for impoverishing countries. I don't deny climate change, but the answer to climate change is fusion energy, nuclear power. And do they ever bring that up? No. The answer to climate change is windmills and solar panels. Well, and unbelievable. One way that you can tell that communists in America are not real communists, and I will bring this up, and if this pisses people off on the chat, right? One of the main communist groups in America, Party for Socialism and Liberation, in their election platform, said they wanted to dismantle America's power grid. Unbelievable. Stalin built power plants all over the Soviet Union. The Chinese communists build power plants not over the Soviet Union, but all over Africa. But PSL, they're against nuclear power. And in their platform, they said one of their things would be immediately dismantle every fossil fuel power plant in America, every single one, and replace it with sustainable energy, which means windmills and solar panels. That would reduce electrical output in America to roughly 29% of what we have right now. That is genocide. Right now in America, the big bankers and imperialists have allowed the power grid to rot. They have allowed our power grid to rot. People died in Texas in 2020 because the power grid collapsed, because our government is spending money on bombs and tanks and weapons and killing children in Yemen and giving Israel weapons. And they let the power grid collapse in Texas. And they, on top of that, in California, they're having fires because the power grid is so bad. The power grid is constantly going offline in California. But does PSL want to demand that we build power plants in America? Does PSL want to say we're going to fight for working families in Texas and Iowa and Pennsylvania to get power and electricity? Are they going to hire all the unemployed young people to start building a strong power grid for America? Oh, no. PSL wants to dismantle the power grid. It's disgusting. I want nothing to do with degrowth. It's disgusting. These people speak in the name of socialism, and they want to destroy power grids. Have they ever opened a goddamn history book? Did Stalin destroy power plant? I mean, what the hell are you talking about? You want to dismantle the power grid, and you're talking in the name of socialism. But we know what it's really about. You go and listen to any PSL rally. Listen to it. What do they protest around? Do they protest around anything but abortion needs to be legal? They want abortion on demand, abortion everywhere. They love abortion. They marched for nothing but abortion for the past 3 or 4 years, practically, until it became trendy to march for Palestine. All they ever talked about was abortion. And if you listened to those PSL rallies, you listened to what Claudia de la Cruz, the fake Christian, was talking about, you listened to what Brian Becker and all of them were talking about, what were they saying on the rally? Everyone who wants to outlaw abortion is a fascist. Everyone who wants to outlaw abortion is a Nazi. Everyone, every Muslim, every Orthodox Jew, every Catholic, every Protestant who doesn't believe in abortion is the same as Hitler. That's what they were saying on their rallies, and that's why they want to rip apart the power grid. They want to murder Christians. That's what it's about. They think Christians are Nazis. They think working class people in Alabama and Texas and Idaho who voted for Donald Trump are the same as Hitler and need to be exterminated. That's what they believe. And that is exactly what they believe. And you look at social media, you read anywhere on their posts, Trumpers are all Nazis. All the people who voted for Donald Trump because he said he was going to end the wars, maybe he's not doing it. That's not the issue. All of them who voted for Donald Trump because he said they wanted to end the wars, they're all the same as Hitler. PSL wants to exterminate them. It's a despicable organization. Stalin built power plants. Fidel Castro built power plants. They want to dismantle them while they wage a culture war against people who don't believe in abortion. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. And, and then they have the gall when they say that everyone who doesn't support abortion is a Nazi who deserves to be beaten up and killed. They then have the gall to organize the Palestine rallies. Do you think that the crowds of Muslims that are coming to those rallies, do you think they believe in abortion, you fucking idiot woke tards? Do you think the crowds of Muslims that are marching for Palestine, do you think they want abortion legal? Do you think they want LGBT flags and trans? But oh no, anyone who questions the woke agenda deserves to be beaten up and killed. They are garbage. They are absolute garbage. Absolute garbage. What they are doing, they are trying to manipulate people who don't want World War III into supporting the Democrat Party and into supporting anti-Trump, Trump derangement syndrome. It is absolutely outrageous. If Kamala Harris had been elected president, I would be in prison right now. Did you not see who raided the Uhuru house? Did you not see what they did? They raided Scott Ritter's home. But PSL is out there pandering to Trump derangement syndrome, preaching hatred for working class Americans who don't believe in abortion, who don't believe in gay marriage, who, God forbid, go to church on Sunday, God forbid, have a gun so they can protect their families, believe in the Second Amendment. Unbelievable, unbelievable. PSL is anti-working class. PSL is a party of woke liberal scum. That's what they are. And they hate me. They have threatened me on numerous occasions. I can't even go to cover one of their goddamn rallies about Palestine without a bunch of people walking up to me and talking trash to me. They are garbage. They are absolute garbage. Sorry, I get fired up about it. Unbelievable. What kind of socialist organization wants to take apart the power grid? What kind of socialist organization wants to demonize Americans because of their Christian faith? What kind of socialist organization would hate people that are religious if they oppose abortion, are religious if they oppose gay marriage, and then would have the gall to organize Palestine rallies? Unbelievable. And of course, they hate me. I'll tell you another thing about PSL. Right after Uhuru got raided by the FBI, about a year after they got raided by the FBI, the Uhuru movement had a rally organized in Washington, D.C. for their case. They had their Black is Back march in Washington, D.C. And what did PSL do? They actually tried to get their permit taken away, and they tried to cancel the Uhuru movement's march. Can you believe this? At a time, a group of black revolutionaries have had their homes raided by the FBI, And PSL was so desperate. They want to be king of the Palestine protest, king of the protest cage. They've got all their funding from billionaire Roy Singham. They tried to take the protest permit away from the Uhuru movement. They're basically a wing of the FBI, as far as I am concerned, right? Absolutely despicable. You know, Uhuru, they couldn't even prove they even got any money from Russia, but they get all kinds of money from some pro-China billionaire, but the FBI has never touched them. Never touched them one bit. Never touched them. They, you know, it's well documented. It's all over the news that a pro-China billionaire named Roy Singham is bankrolling them to be king of the protest cage. The FBI just never touches them. And then the FBI does target the Uhuru movement, and they work to get their protest canceled. You tell me if PSL is a legitimate organization. You tell me if PSL is part of the anti-imperialist movement. I'll tell you another thing. PSL's, one of their leaders is a guy named Mike Preisner, and he's married to Abby Martin. And both of them supported the peace movement in Russia. Who leads the peace movement in Russia? Who leads the movement repeating CNN and MSNBC talking points against the Russian government? Is it led by anti-imperialists? Is it led by working class people? It's led by Alexander Navalny. PSL works for the CIA. They are aligned with the Russian opposition that disrupts. The Russian people are dying on the battlefield in Ukraine right now. And Brian Becker, who got a paycheck from Sputnik News for years, right, who got his bills paid by the Russians, is working with the peace movement led by Alexander Navalny and the rich kids who want to bring free market capitalism into Russia. And Abby Martin and Mike Preisner support the CIA peace movement in Russia, trying to overthrow the Russian government, trying to destabilize Russia, trying to weaken their efforts to protect the peoples of Donbass. You want to talk about a sellout scumbag organization. The Party for Socialism and Liberation is absolutely despicable. They are lying con artists. And that's why they've got a huge, fancy office, because they're lying con artists. That's why. They are not anti-imperialist. They are against the working class. They are against working families. They want to dismantle the power grid. They're working against the Russian government. They are absolutely despicable. Absolutely despicable. Sorry, I get fired up sometimes, but you know, to have scum like this threaten you, to have people who claim to believe the same thing that you believe, working with the government against you, threatening you, it's a bit much, right? You know, there's a reason I can't call myself a communist anymore, is because people like this, you know, unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. It gets me fired up. It gets me very, very angry. They've had a million chances in the world to just stop their harassment campaign. What they did to Uhuru was absolutely abominable. What they have said about working class people who oppose abortion is absolutely abominable. Their position on the Ukraine war is absolutely abominable. And look, folks, the Palestine movement. I just got to say this: the Palestine movement. All right. Average Trump supporters don't support Israel. They don't. Right. Look at Candace Owens. Right. Look at how many Trump supporters have spoken up, you know, in support of Mahmoud Khalil. Average Trump supporters understand that America first does not mean Israel first. Okay. But PSL, they're king of the protest cage. They lead the Palestine protests, and they have gone out of their way to make sure that those Palestine protests are as anti-working class as they can possibly be. They should be out there with American flags saying money for jobs and schools in America, not for Israel. Do they say that? Oh, no. They get out there with their faces covered up and their middle fingers out and their nose rings. Fuck America. Fuck America. Racist, sexist. They're out there, and their message to average Americans is, we hate you. That's what they're saying to average Americans. They're trying to get Trump supporters to support Israel. I mean, it's unbelievable. They are the best friends Israel ever had. PSL, by leading the Palestine protests to be hate America rallies, hate working class American rallies that burn American flags, that give the middle finger, that are nasty, hateful rallies. Why would you join a movement that hates you? Would you join a movement of people who hate you? The Palestine rallies, their message to the American people has been, I hate you. PSL has organized these people to block these people from going to work. Did you know this? In New York City, PSL organized a bunch of people to block the Holland Tunnel, to block people in New York City from getting to work. You can watch a video of an African-American man who gets out of his car and he confronts one of these PSL assholes and says, I'm trying to go see my daughter. I've got nothing to do with Israel. I've got to see my daughter. You're blocking me from getting to work. They are against American working people, right? Yeah, for a while, I kid you not, PSL was driving to Starbucks and driving to the drive-up window. I'd like to order an end to genocide, harassing low-wage workers, right? PSL are the best friends that Israel ever had. They are the best friends that Israel ever had. They are the best friends that U.S. imperialism ever had. And the sad thing about it, you know what the worst thing about PSL is there's a lot of people who join PSL for good reasons. They join PSL because they like China, they like the Soviet Union, they want jobs in schools, and they join PSL and they work their butts off for 2 years for no pay, while Brian Becker goes around the world and fundraises and enriches himself. And after 2 or 3 years in PSL, they realize PSL has absolutely no chance of ever growing. They have no plan to ever recruit people in mass. They won't even go on Kim Iverson's show. Kim Iverson gave a complete platform to Claudia Dela Cruz, their presidential candidate. They didn't respond to any of her emails because she's right wing. She questioned the vaccine, And so, like, if you can't get along with Kim Iverson, who's very anti-Israel, very anti-imperial, you can't get along with Kim Iverson. How are you going to win over the American people? Unbelievable. They wouldn't even go on the Kim Iverson show. That's how stupid they are. PSL, after 2 or 3 years, most PSL members realize this isn't a real party. There's no plan to ever win over the working class. There's no plan to ever win any elections. There's no plan to ever build a base. This is a fundraising operation. This is a fundraising operation for Brian Becker. This is Brian Becker's personal cash cow. That's all this is. And, and then what do these young people do? They quit activism. They just go back to living biologically. They just go back, they leave. They figure I got scammed and they feel demoralized and they go back to their normal lives. Right? That is absolutely unbelievable. People full of energy and potential who really want to change the world. After 2 or 3 years, they realize I'm getting scammed. I'm getting taken advantage of. And they just go away. That, how many people, that revolving door, people talk about how PSL is a revolving door. Yeah, it's a revolving door. And it's a revolving door when we don't need a revolving door. We need a real movement. We need a real movement. And yeah, I get fired up about these things. I get very fired up about these things. I am sorry, my crime from the beginning. Right. And I don't even call myself a communist anymore because I don't want to be associated with the wrecker politics, basically. But my crime has always been that I am sincere. I believe in what I'm saying. That's my crime. Right. If I was willing to play ball and be part of the scam, the fake, ineffective train wreck of American leftism, I would be in a much better spot. But my crime is that I believe in what I'm saying. I believe in what I'm doing. And I can't just sit back and grift. I'm sorry. There's so many people that just sit back and grift. Right? PSL does their own in real life version of what I was complaining about before with demagogy. They pander to whatever the latest trendy liberal cause is, Trump derangement syndrome, whatever, and they don't teach people anything. Right? You go to one PSL rally, you've been to them all, right? They don't teach people anything. It's just an operation. They want to capture whatever the latest trendy liberal cause is. Their ideological and political writings are written for people that are in kindergarten. It's very, very sad. But look, I apologize for getting so fired up. I get too fired up about this stuff, but it just makes me angry. It just makes me angry. and the problem is I take this seriously, right? If I didn't take this seriously, I wouldn't get so angry about it, right? And that's the thing. It's so easy if you don't care, right? If you're not concerned about anti-imperialism, right? If you're not concerned about anti-imperialism, if this is all just a big contest to get likes and shares on the internet, if this is all just a big game to position yourself to be king of the protest cage, it's very easy. I'm sure nobody in PSL gets as angry as I get right now, right? Brian Becker's probably sitting on his couch smoking a blunt right now and, smoking a joint with his latest girlfriend and, laughing, and if they see this, they're probably laughing their heads off. Look at that weirdo who actually cares about this. Doesn't he realize this is just a scam? And that's how these people are. They're cynical. I believe in what I'm saying. I believe in what I'm doing. I actually take this seriously. I want to have a better America. I want to see an America where working families can thrive and the billionaire bankers and monopolies that run this country are defeated. I want to see a new America reborn as part of the new economy aligned with Russia and China. That is what I want. And because of that, no, I can't just sit back and go along with the crowd. I can't just sit back and refuse to teach people anything and just pander to their Trump derangement syndrome or pander to whatever sentiments will get me likes and shares. I have to teach people stuff. I have to take this seriously and I have to build, It's frustrating. It's frustrating. But you know what? Okay. All right. And hey, Phil, if you want to call me up afterwards and tell me to calm down, you can do that. I'll forgive you. But I just want to say this though, right? With all due respect to everyone watching this, right? I try not to get so fired up. I try not to get angry about these things. There's some of you that are here to see that. There's some of you that are here to see that. You know that there are some of you that love it when I get fired up. There are some of you that love it. There are some of you that absolutely love it when I start yelling about other communist groups and all that. There are some of you who love that. There are some of you that are here just to see that. Yes, you are. Yes, you are. You know it. You know it. And that's why I do it. I wouldn't do it if there weren't people here that love to see it. Right? Right? Yeah. Thank you for being honest. Thank you for being honest, people in the chat. Thank you for being honest. There are people that love to see it. There are people who love it when I get fired up. There are people who love it when I call out the opportunists. There are people here who love that. We love it, and there is a wink and a nod. There is a twinkle in our eye as we do it, right? We can get fired up. We can get angry, but at the end of the day, we're all here having fun, right? It's Saturday night. Look, Garland Nixon, bless. I don't want to say, you shouldn't say bless his heart, right? That's kind of an offensive, phrase, right? That's kind of an offensive thing, right? In the South, if someone says bless your heart, it's kind of a nasty thing. So I don't want to say bless his heart. So don't bless his heart because that's a nasty thing. But Garland, that story that he tells about the guy pushing on the wall, the guy pushing on the aircraft carrier. We got to just love it. We got to just enjoy the ride. Right? At the end of the day, right? These are hard times. I think about, I get frustrated about this or that. Imagine what the people in Donbass are going through. Imagine what the Yemeni people are going through right now. We're trying to do our part for what we know is right. That's what we're trying to do. We're here in the center of imperialism. We're watching our society come apart, and we're seeing the death agony of this system. And we're trying to do our little bit for what we know is right. That's what we're trying to do. And it's not easy and it's frustrating, but we got to learn to just love and believe in what we're doing. That's what we got to learn to do. Right? We got to learn to just enjoy the struggle and to just find fulfillment and satisfaction in taking a stand and making our contribution. I love sharing and teaching the ideas that I teach right now. I love the community that we have. I'm blown away by Penny. How she went out and organized, and she did a protest all by herself. My goodness, that is dedication. And my hat off to Penny, and my hat off to everybody. Look, we gotta just be cool. But Leo Messi, he says China executed a Canadian for drugs. I am against the death penalty. So I don't agree with that. China has very strict drug laws because they are in kind of a military situation with the drug importers. But then Jenny is saying that didn't actually happen. So, I haven't investigated the case, but Jenny says that didn't actually happen. Regardless, I think that no country should have the death penalty. Unfortunately, I understand that, when China is in kind of a life and death struggle against drug dealers are pretty nasty. And look, countries like China, like Iran, even like Singapore, places like that, the reason that they are very, very extreme with their anti-drug laws, Cuba too, right? The reason is that these drug gangs are notorious for going into countries and pointing guns in people's faces, and saying, "Do what we want, or we kill you." The only way that the government, the state of Iran or China or Singapore or Taiwan, the only way the state stands a chance in fighting those drug cartels is to have the same threat. That sucks. But it's kind of the circumstances that these countries are in. And I mean it's awful, right? I think drug addiction is a medical issue. I think drugs should be legal. And I think that people who have a drug addiction issue should receive treatment and go into recovery. It should be treated as a medical or mental health issue rather than a criminal matter. That said, China is fighting for its life. The drug cartels that operate, particularly out of Afghanistan, ever since the USA invaded Afghanistan, it's just been a hub of heroin, dealers and poppy fields. And they feel like, look, if we're going to fight the drug cartels of Afghanistan, who are known to point guns in people's faces and say, "Do what we say or we kill you," we have to have the same threat. We have to have people know that if they work with them, we'll kill them, or else what are we going to do, right? If the choice is work with us or we kill you, and okay, if I don't work with them, they'll kill me, but if I do work with them, I might get life in prison. I mean, it's a shitty situation. It's an absolutely shitty situation. And one thing, I don't know if people, a lot of people think that what we're doing with our politics is we're playing SimCity. All right. I remember there was a computer game when I was a kid in the 90s called SimCity, where you got to design a city all from scratch and you just got to build it. That's not what real politics is like. You don't get a blank slate and you can just build whatever you want on it. That's not how things work. Right. And that countries that are under attack, they're under certain circumstances and they have to compromise with the existing social forces. And that, I'm sure the Chinese government would probably prefer to not have the death penalty. But in the circumstances that they're in, that's what they have determined they have to do. And that sucks. I will say the way we do the death penalty in America is particularly demented and unhealthy because it's not a deterrent. It is not a deterrent in any way, right? The idea that somebody is going to murder somebody and then they think, "Oh boy, I better not do it because 20 years from now, I might get the death penalty." That doesn't happen. There's not a single person who's about to murder somebody and they're like, "Wait a second, 20 years from now, they might execute me for this." That doesn't happen, right? And the death penalty in the United States, even in the states where we do have it, right? Texas, it's a little more routine. Florida, it's a little more routine. But other than Texas and Florida, to get the death penalty in America, most states don't have it. The states that do have it, you have to have done something so horrendous. It has to be a really horrendous crime. And then even then, you don't get it for 20 years because you got 20 years of appeals. Nobody is deterred by that, right? So either you commit, a really horrendous crime. You're, an axe murderer who, rapes and murders somebody in the most ugly, evil way, or you kill a police officer. Now, killing a police officer is a horrible thing to do, right? And I've really, I was a leftist for a long time, and leftist, there's kind of a hatred for cops. I've gotten over that, right? I mean, I obviously am horrified by police brutality. I'm horrified by a lot of things that cops and prosecutors do, but I think many people become police officers because they're good people. They want to serve their community. And the like, you're a bad person if you're a cop, that we need to get over that. That's juvenile stuff, right? I was young, and I look back on that. I did see things. I worked around police brutality when I was in Cleveland, and I saw utterly horrendous things that went on in the Cleveland court system. And, Black Lives Matter was necessary. That used to be, nobody talked about these issues, etc. But that said, I don't hate police officers. I really don't, right? And I've matured in a lot of ways. I just think but that said, right, the idea that we're going to have the death penalty as like a special favor to one profession, that's not right. I don't agree with that, right? Obviously, anyone who kills a police officer should be harshly punished. Obviously, police officers deserve special respect for the risk that they take, etc. But the idea that we should have the death penalty as a favor to them, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. And again, it's not logical. There is nobody who's going to kill a police officer and stops and says, wait, I might get the death penalty in 20 years, depending on what state I'm in. No, that doesn't happen, right? And that the way the death penalty is carried out, in particular in relation to the killing of police officers, is really sick, right? There have been executions in Texas, where it's somebody who killed a police officer, and they have hotels, with short circuit TVs, where all these police officers are sitting in hotel rooms watching on their TVs this person get the death penalty. That's sick, unhealthy. And it's been pointed out that the death penalty in the states where we have it, it takes on almost the character of a religious sacrament of some type, right? It's almost like some kind of demented ceremony, right? And it's unhealthy. It's not healthy at all. Again, the way they do the death penalty in China is very effective. Not saying it's right. I personally would prefer that no society do that. But if you're going to do it that way, right? If you have a rule, you bring drugs into China, we kill you. You have a rule, you bring drugs into Singapore, we kill you. People will not bring drugs into Singapore because they don't want to be killed. People will not bring drugs into China because they don't want to be killed. But if you have a rule that you will get the death penalty, maybe, if you kill somebody in 20 years, that is stupid, and it's unhealthy. And it's like, there are certain people in the United States, and I grew up around these people. Okay. I grew up around these people. So, and we can be honest here, right? We're not red or blue. We're not right wing, left wing, right? I grew up around a lot of people who they just really believe in the death penalty. It is like a religious principle. They wouldn't say that. It's not like they believe the Bible says thou shalt have the death penalty. Some of them might say that, eye for an eye or whatever. But for the most part, it's not blatantly religious. It's like culturally religious. It's just a thing they believe in, right? It is just something that they must believe in. And that's just something that's not healthy. It's in our culture, and it's not healthy. You know, and it's something unhealthy about American culture. You know, I talk about the Atlanticist pathology. That's something I've talked about. I talked about that in the textbook, and I've talked about that in other things. And that, you know, we really do in America hold on to a lot of the Victorian stuff. The Victorian stuff that they kind of got over in Britain. You know, Britain, they're not really doing the Victorian stuff anymore. We hold on to a lot of Victorian stuff in America, and that's not good, right? I mean, you know, but anyway, next question. All right. 75% of the USA nuclear grid or leaking not up to date. Unbelievable. Why not hemp fuel? Hemp fuel, is that a thing, right? Marijuana fuel, is that a thing? You know, hey, if we can burn hemp for it, I'm not opposed to that. I mean, it's just like any other plant. There's one of those movies from the it was like from World War I, Hemp for Victory, and it was like encouraging people to grow hemp for rope or something, and that became like a popular stoner film or something, right? Stoners would laugh. Hemp for Victory, whatever. It was from World War I believe, right? Is that still a thing? Hemp for Victory? I bet I can find that. It was like a government propaganda film, you know, urging people to make hemp, right? And it became like, yeah. Oh, it's from World War II. Hemp for Victory, right? It's an old... Stoners love to watch it because it's like ironic because they're talking about marijuana plants, but it's, you know, it's like a government military film that just happens to be promoting marijuana, and people find it kind of ironic, right? 1942, Hemp for Victory. All right, we'll put on Hemp for Victory. See if... I've never actually watched... I've watched people like joke about it before. I've never actually watched Hemp for Victory. So we'll put on the first couple minutes of the World War II era propaganda film, Hemp for Victory. All right, this is Hemp for Victory. All right, video. Oh, here we go.
Hangman, hemp was indispensable. A 44-gun frigate, like our cherished old Ironsides, took over 60 tons of hemp for rigging. The seeds on a female plant. Hemp for fiber is ready to harvest when the pollen is shedding and the leaves are falling. In Kentucky, hemp harvest comes in August. Here, the old standby has been the self-rake reaper, which has been used for a generation or more. Hemp grows so luxuriantly in Kentucky that harvesting is sometimes difficult, which may account for the popularity of the self-rake with its lateral stroke. A modified rice binder has been used to some extent. This machine works well in average hemp. Recently, the improved hemp harvester, used for many years in Wisconsin, has been introduced in Kentucky. This machine spreads the hemp in a continuous swath. It is a far cry from this fast and efficient modern harvester to the Armstrong model of yore. But here's one kind of harvester, at least, that doesn't stall in the heaviest hemp. In Kentucky, hand cutting is practiced in opening fields for the machines. In Kentucky, hemp is shucked as soon as safe after cutting, to be spread out for retting later in the fall.
So there you go. They were playing My Old Kentucky Home, which is the state song of the state of Kentucky, written by Stephen Foster, the beloved American composer. Oh, the sun shines bright on my old Kentucky home, my old Kentucky home far away. All right. Wow. All right. USA Today, Hemp Car, who's a big fan of hemp, is sending in. We found 85,000 cops who've been investigated for misconduct. I'm sure it's more than that, right? Misconduct happens. You can now run diesel cars. Wow, you're really it. Hemp Car really ran with this. You can now run diesel cars on hemp biodiesel. 1/10 of our farmland could power all our cars. Check out The Emperor Wears No Clothes, hempcar.org. Hey, very, very cool. Very, very good. Very, very good. Very, very good. Yeah. Oh, lately, folks, I've been doing this thing where I go to Rumble. I'm not going to do that tonight. But I mean, we're just chugging along here. We're just chugging along. Oh boy. Oh boy. Is that part of my old Kentucky home, or is that another song? Rain keeps falling down. That must be something else, right? That's another song, right? That's a song I'm not as familiar with. But yeah. Anyway, it is March 22nd. I do want to give a shout out to anyone watching from the United Kingdom or Great Britain. There was a memorial service today in Britain for Harpal Brar, the great anti-imperialist and friend of this channel. Did 20 podcast episodes on this channel, did a long interview on this channel. Someone I looked up to for quite some time. He passed away, and we were unable to attend. Unfortunately, there were some of us. We were considering a trip to Britain for the memorial. We were unable to go, but our heart was there in spirit. We wrote a beautiful obituary, beautiful obituary for Harpal on our website. It was written by Gavin, by the way. He did a great job. Just a beautiful obituary for Harpal Brar. And good stuff. Yeah, folks, I did just remove somebody from the chat. The person was a naysayer. There's really no answer to naysaying. If somebody has a legit question, what is your position on that? What is your position on this? You can answer it. But when someone's just inventing new things to get upset about, you just remove naysayers. There's no answer to cynicism, as they say. What I keep seeing, bye Felicia. What is that? Is that a joke? Can you explain that one to me, Jenny? Bye Felicia. What is bye Felicia? Yeah, he was clearly trolling. I saw that. At first it started out, he was saying one thing, and then it turned into something else, and then it turned into something, and I was just like, okay, there's no answer to cynicism. It's from the movie Friday, LOL. Friday. What's Friday? I haven't seen that movie. It's an old meme. Okay. Sarah Jackman. Sarah is awesome, by the way. Go and subscribe to Sarah on Twitter. Go follow Sarah on Twitter. She does good stuff on Twitter. Sarah's always doing good stuff. That's good. And yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. Wild times. Caleb, answer my second Rumble rant. I'd love to hear your opinion. Okay, did I miss it? I thought I read everyone's Rumble rant. Oh, environmentalism is not only a narrative of capitalism to stop growth. Contamination of water is a big in South America. Should South America industrialization always follow the first world? Well, I hate to break it to you, Juanita. The first world does not want to industrialize South America. They don't. The first world wants to keep South America impoverished. There are big sections of Guatemala and Honduras where the people do not have running water. and they do not have electricity. And Honduras and Guatemala have been under the domination of the United States for centuries. Guatemala, they elected a president, Jacobo Arbenz, who the USA didn't like. USA couped him in 1953. There was a brutal dictator in Guatemala for years, backed by the United States, Rios Montt. So Guatemala is not an anti-imperialist country, and yet it's not industrialized. There's big sections of Guatemala that are not industrialized. You go to Peru, big sections of Peru. People live in the jungle. People don't have modern electrification. No, imperialism does not industrialize countries, right? Socialism, anti-imperialism industrializes countries, right? During the Cold War, there were a number of military Bonapartist figures, Park Chung-hee in South Korea, the Shah of Iran, that were pro-imperialist, but the imperialists had to tolerate them industrializing. Marcos in the Philippines, but for the most part, the imperialists don't want to industrialize countries, right? And yes, you want to industrialize in an ecologically sustainable way. You want to keep your water drinkable and things like that. It's not that there's nothing to environmentalism, but the environmental movement as it currently exists is pro-imperialist. And that is something that people don't want to acknowledge because it's trendy among the left, right? I have ranted many times on here about Beatrice at Dinner, the movie Beatrice at Dinner, and what an abomination film that was, where it basically, was equating growth and economic development with colonialism. And that's something I can rant about. Look, folks, we have been going. We just hit the 3-hour mark. Actually, it's funny. I was getting tired, and then we just hit the 3-hour mark. And I'm writing this book. I feel an obligation to come on here. I'll just be honest with you all. Right? Lately, it's spring. I'm blowing my nose a lot. I've got allergies and all of that. Lately, I have been feeling more like, work on my book, finish my book. I've got, doing research for my book, etc. But I feel an obligation to come on here and engage with all of you because it gives me something. You all give me something very special. You all really do. The fact that you're here night after night after night, the fact that we have our running jokes, the fact that we know each other, the fact that we talk about these issues with the level of depth, the fact that you guys want to learn, right? And that was a big theme tonight. I talked about demagogy and how a demagogy, no one wants to learn anything. Well, you all are here because you want to learn, right? You all are a special group of people that want to learn. And because you want to learn, you're here. And I appreciate that. I really, really appreciate that. And I'm learning from all of you. I'm reading in the chat. I learned about hemp tonight, right? I learned about hemp. I learned about different cases. And I we are on a journey together, and you're here because you want to be on that journey. And that means a lot to me. Look, I absolutely know that we are going to have the biggest CPI convention we've ever had. We're going to get at least 400 people in that auditorium, right? And, we had a great meeting this afternoon, and we're on a journey. We are on a journey together. And that's why I come on here. And I'll be back. I'm doing Due Dissidence podcast tomorrow. Be sure to tune in. I'll be back streaming. We do the night streams. I learned about Bye Felicia. That's right. I learned about Bye Felicia. Exactly. And that, this channel is an opportunity for us to hang out together. And that's beautiful. To celebrate what our community is doing, to hang out together. And it's really, really beautiful. And so that's why I'm here. And I want to encourage you all to stay engaged. That's what I want to encourage you all to do. Stay engaged. Challenge yourself. Right? Challenge yourself. Push yourself to do better. Reach out to people in real life. Don't be in a bubble. Don't be atomized. Don't be niche. And keep your eyes on the prize. That's all we can really do. Keep your eyes on the prize. Keep your eyes on victory. Because we will win. We will win. And I am confident that good things are on the horizon and the good time is coming. Read Wallace Wattles. I really enjoy the Wallace Wattles book. They want us to be afraid. That's a good way of putting it, Gabby. They want us to be afraid. And yeah, we are just going to keep organizing. So dare to struggle, dare to win, everybody. I'm signing off here. It's been fun. I'll be back. Dare to struggle, dare to win. Yeah, I am going to put on the closing music. Putting on the closing music. Do-do-do. New upsurge in the struggle against U.S. imperialism is now emerging throughout the world. Ever since World War II, U.S. imperialism and its followers have been continuously launching wars of aggression. But the people of various countries have been continuously waging revolutionary wars to defeat their aggression. And while the danger of a new world war still exists, and the people of all countries must get prepared, revolution is the main trend in the world today.